Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto signed contract with seductive Succubus and harem in Chuunin Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the MisoSparkz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. Naruto was walking through the forest. He sighed. It was a sunny day on the outskirts of Konoha. The birds chirped and the trees rustled around him. But Naruto wasn't paying attention. Instead, he was focused on his task ahead of him. It was getting increasingly, and to see that the goal of being Hokage was a lot of hard work. Although he was a proud shinobi ninja, he always felt like a misfit among his peers. The worst part of all, he didn't even have a girlfriend. Sakura, the girl who he had been crushing on since he was a kid, was always going to over Sasuke. Hinata and the other girls never gave him the time of day. He didn't think of himself as unattractive. Was it his whisker marks? He just didn't understand it. He was 19 years old, and never once had some type of mate to be with. It was all so confusing for him. Maybe he could stay in the forest to clear his head for a few minutes about all the thoughts running through his head. Then all of a sudden he heard a girl sobbing. It was reverberating all over, so he couldn't pinpoint it. Shit, he thought to himself. He didn't know where to go. He really wanted to find that noise. But what if this place is cursed or something? No, wait a minute. He looked to the north side and saw a young woman crouching down, crying in a way that oozes despair. Naruto rushed to her side. Are you okay? He stated. She lifted her head. This woman had pink hair that went down to her shoulders and brown ember eyes. She wore a tan blouse with blue shorts, but from all indications, her clothes looked like they had been ripped apart. And my dad beat me up and kicked me out of the house because he was going to force me to marry someone. Naruto frowned at this. He knew how unfair the world could be, but that doesn't mean it was any less harsh or cruel. He gently sat down beside her and held his arm in support. I'm sorry, it must be awful being forced to make your marriage with your father. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe I can help you. She looked at this fine stranger and smiled somberly. Thanks, my name is Shana, and I'm from the Rain Village. I ran as far away as possible, she whispered, sniffling a little bit. Naruto couldn't just let her stay here. Do you want to move into Konoha with me? Naruto asked, showing a toothy grin, trying to lighten the mood. Her face lit up a bit. Really, are you sure? I don't want to be a burden or anything, Shana stated. Naruto shook his head and patted her. No, don't say that. I'm just gonna tell Bachan about your situation and see if she could help. I know she won't turn you down. He offered a hand to her. She smiled and grabbed it. Thank you, Naruto. She then looked a little brighter. It took about an hour for her to explain everything that happened and explain why she left and ended up living alone at some random location. Naruto couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. As she spoke to him, he noticed that her teeth canines looked a bit sharper than usual humans. From an hour ago, that was strange, but he didn't question it. As they were walking, Shana looked over at Naruto and smiled. I need to tell me something, and I think you might like it, Shana explained to him, showing a good-natured toothy grin. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Why, what is it? Naruto asked. They stopped walking. She then stepped back and her good angelic smile turned into a sinister smirk. All of a sudden purple mist began to flow all around her. Her appearance changed. That's why Naruto noticed something a little different about her. She had small fangs but didn't really pay attention to it. Surprise, my actual name is Shamsiel Shahar. It's a bit long, so you can just call me Shamsiel. We're going to have so much fun together. She screamed in delight, making a Y pose. The mist had finally cleared so he could see his true form. She was wearing bridal gauntlets, knee-high boots, blue lace lingerie, and demonic horns protruding from both sides. Her were a D cup and had a visible camel toe. She had her upon staring at Naruto. He drew his kunai. He was taken aback from all this. He had those species like this. But I thought you were an abused young girl? He said in horror. His kunai then turned into a fruit. Succubus like me have gotten creative on luring their traps, she giggled. She then narrowed her eyes, and all of a sudden her tail extended from within her and wrapped all over Naruto's groin area. He winced and then tried to create a Rasengan, but it turned to ash. Whoever this creature was, she was powerful. Trust me, you'll feel happy and you'll go to heaven after I'm done, she whispered. Her tail then emitted a red mist. The blonde-haired shinobi tried to fight back, but he was turning into a tired husk. Now hold still, she ordered. He obeyed, and soon enough she got her to wish. Several hours later, many hours later, Shamsiel was in a daze. Her entire body was caked in Naruto's dry semen. The small window to the mysterious place she took both of them shined a little bit of light. Her eyes fluttered open. In all her time on this planet she had never felt like that before. Being ed like that by a human was a disgrace to some succubus, but she didn't care about that. Her rustling on the bed was enough to wake up Naruto, who covered himself up and wrapped his hands around her body, cupping her warm. "Am morning time already?" he asked groggily. "Am I dead?" Shamsiel smiled. "No, you're very much alive, you have the best semen ever, you Edney stupid," she blushed, rubbing the back of her head. Naruto still couldn't understand how all of this happened. He got up gingerly and turned to see her. "So, why did you do all of that yesterday?" he asked. "To be honest, I've been watching you for a few days now. And although I did want you to death, you were a lot stronger with me with your high libido. I can't believe you were a virgin before we met yesterday, you're quite the stud." She blushed. "So, where do we go from here?" Naruto asked. "Having with a succubus is awesome, and I no longer feel any sadness anymore. I should just tell Bachan to keep you with me as I said before," Naruto stated. Shamsiel nodded her head. Flashback and, "Wow, you're a thief," Naruto muttered, rolling his eyes. Shamsiel giggled. "It was consensual though, so at least there's that." She shrugged. As they were walking back to Konoha, Naruto can't help but just be overwhelmed by everything that was going on. Here is a succubus from some demonic realm, following him back to Konoha after deceiving him. What if she was just tricking him in the first place, and just using him and the other villagers as food? Naruto was already a distant person and considered by many to be an outcast. He pondered for a while when all of a sudden Shamsiel was poking his such adorable whiskers. She genuinely smiled at him, showing her fangs. Naruto's heart was beating. Nobody complimented him on his whiskers. To him he felt like he was an outcast because of them. "Hey, why don't you give me a piggyback ride?" Shamsiel ordered, holding her hands up to him. Naruto was confused. "You can fly," he said. "If that wasn't the obvious thing in the world." Shamsiel glared at him, poking his. "You dummy," she grumbled. "You told me that you didn't want me to use my wings. Aren't you my boyfriend? And a boyfriend is supposed to help his girlfriend in distress." She gave him a cute pout, her brown demonic ember eyes looking directly at his ocean blue eyes. Naruto's blushed a red hue as her was touching his body. She crossed her arms and still looked at him. You know what, he didn't care. She was the first girl that ever gave him the time of day, even though she was a soul semen succubus. Naruto just wanted to spend time with Shamsiel, and really get to know why she was here in the first place, and enjoy whatever it was she had planned. He took her hand and clasped them together, showing a loving smile. He had her hand softly. Shamsiel bit her. He then lifted his head and then touched her cheek, closing in for a. Shamsiel blushed profusely, and ed him back. She had always thought of men as her food, but this one was different. She was doing her best not to melt into a puddle. They could feel the heat radiating off both of their faces. His hands then traveled down to her waist, and then slithered down her well-toned but soft, grabbing it, causing her to. He was definitely loving every moment of this. They both released their ass from one another and stared at each other's eyes. They liked what they both saw. "How silly of me," Naruto whispered, speaking up first, smirking. Shamsiel's cheeks turned into a permanent pink. "Come on, hop on my back. The others will really start to wonder where I am if we don't hurry." Shamsiel nodded dumbfoundedly as she put on the sound ninja headband. She got on his back, to make sure she doesn't ask if that's even likely. Shikamaru and Chuji, who were bored and sitting down thinking about what to do after completing their mission, saw someone familiar. "Isn't that Naruto? We haven't seen him in ages," Chuji said. Shikamaru's eyes darted towards him, but he noticed someone on his back. "Who is that?" he asked. Chuji shrugged. "Beats me. I'm just starving, man. Perhaps it's someone that he rescued." "Understandable," Shikamaru whispered. This might be something new. After going to Tsunade and explaining the situation that Shamsiel was in an abusive relationship with her father which caused her to run as far away from her environment as possible. In other times like this, Tsunade would usually never ever aid an enemy village like the Sound. But from all looks of it, she was an abused woman. She saw marks and cuts all over her body, completely ignoring the fact that it was self-inflicted by purpose due to Shamsiel's magic. She gave a nod and approved the plan to shelter her in Konoha. "All right, she can stay. In the meantime, she will have to be with you for safety since our visitor feels more comfortable as she only knows you. In the meantime, why don't you show her around and get used to the village?" Tsunade ordered. Naruto could feel his member harden. A succubus in his apartment. How convenient. Shamsiel's senses were tingling, and caught a peek of his bulge, smirking evilly. She laughed her mind. He didn't expect them to actually be living together. They walked out of her office with Shamsiel clinging onto his arm. "Naruto, I'm tired. Can we go to your apartment please?" she whined. "But I really want to show you around," he told her back. Shamsiel pouted and leaned into his ear. His skin hair was raising up when she was closing in on him. "I'm very hungry, and I need to tell you a few things about me," she said. She then pulled him into an alley to further convince him, planting him many grabbing his hands, and letting him touch her soft. Naruto drooled. He would be stupid not to listen to her. He grabbed her hand and dashed towards his apartment as fast as he could. He opened the door to his apartment, revealing a small kitchen with one king-sized. Naruto, as he got older, took better care to keep everything in order, making his bed occasionally and not leaving old ramen noodle cups out causing mold. Shamsiel inspected everywhere as her eyes glittered. What a neat place, a lot smaller than my room. But neat nonetheless. She gave him a wink and a thumbs up. So what did you want to about your origin? What realm are you from? Naruto curiously asked. Shamsiel smiled. I would be delighted to tell you, in fact, that's why I wanted to talk here. She grinned. She floated to his bed and turned into her original form with her red tail and wings from her civilian clothing. Every time Naruto saw her wearing that he gulped. She was a Yueo goddess that wanted his semen. She giggled and fluttered and tapped her hands on his bed. Era, come on Naruto-kun, I want bite you. I want to tell you more about me. Shamisen stated. Naruto obliged, and walked towards the bed. He was trying his best to hide his shaft. She shook her head and let her tail remove his hands away from his groin area. He should be more honest with himself. I come from a demon world named the Sanctum Semenkus. I have a mom and several thousand sisters. She stated in an obvious tone. Naruto's jaw dropped, and Shamsiel laughed at his reaction. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. My mom's name is Mephisiura Shahar. She's the queen of the Succubus. My sister's name, who's the most important to me, is Farika Mia Shahar. We're technically the first two that were born to her, so that's why we're so important. She puffed up her. Naruto nodded, trying to follow everything that she was saying. So, basically the goal of every succubus is to and drink semen in order to stay alive and have a harem. And I tried to do the latter, but I didn't much enjoy having with other demons such as orcs and goblins. They were all really rough. I and my mom and sister had a fallout. We're on speaking terms, but to me, I want to make love piantly. I want more than food, I wanted a mate. So I haven't been satisfied to an extent, but that's when I came here on Earth. Human males come then demons, but I accidentally kill them and they are sent to heaven. When I found you, there was something different about you. You want to become Hokage and have dreams and ambitions, and you're very sweet. I'm sorry about your child and what you went through. I want to take care of all your needs. I'm really the only one for you. She then stood up in front of him and snapped her, making her blue one piece disappear, revealing her body. Naruto gulped. Shamsiel had a smug look on her face, and she then placed her hand on the center of Naruto's stomach. You have nice abs. She complimented. He blushed, her and tail tracing around his abs, and rubbing circles between them. Her tail grew purple and tapped his shinobi orange jacket and black pants, and made his clothes disappear too. Naruto, I'm very sorry that I wanted to you to death. I am a succubus. It's my nature, but you really have a high semen count. Her legs began to quiver as she was her woman. His stood up high. Naruto stood up and held her shoulders. I know it's not your fault. I'm actually quite turned on by it. It's nice to have someone appreciate you. We both rub off on each other, and we both have needs. I love you, Shamsiel, he whispered. He then grabbed her wide tail and began to stroke it. He watched as her whole demeanor changed from one of nervousness to having heart-shaped pupils in her eyes. She was being turned on in every inch of her body. Before he can say anything, she then gave him a great big hug with her tail hugging them both. Yee! She squealed. She then tackled him on his bed and proceeded to plant a million yes on him, causing Naruto to laugh as she did. The succubus was now on top, her tail wiggling on his face trying to open his. Naruto obliged and opened his to her tail. For him, her tail was slimy but felt good too. Her ETS like her wings, which were so unique about her. Shamsiel understood this and loved that. The more he kept playing with her tail, but more hardened it became. After a few minutes he spat it back out. Shamsiel's eyes narrowed seductively. I only want 3 meals from you, Naruto. You can have with me how you want, whenever you want. She then lowered her face to his member, and at his which was oozing in pleasure. Do you want me to start here? Your body is totally honest with being attracted to me, Shamsiel whispered. Her was face up and her entire face was on his groin area, smelling the aroma and respecting its length. Naruto grinned. He was no longer some dense nobody who people thought. Shamsiel really unlocked his perviness. Jiraiya would have been proud of them. Naruto in a flash fed them over so he was on top. Shamsiel-chan, I need to thank you for taking my V-card and telling me about your species and your true nature, he said. His hands were menacing as he twitched them all around. His whole body was ready to ravage hers. Shamsiel blushed a deep crimson. She made sure to soundproof the entire room as she wanted to scream as possible so she can enjoy every full act he committed with her. Oh. Naruto nervously said, his bouncing up and down. not sure whether to be turned on or shrivel. Shamsiel calmed him down by ing him. It's okay. I'm here. Shamsiel reared, and Naruto gulped. You better hope you know what you're doing, he said in a frightened but serious tone. Don't worry, now we have to be quiet, Shamsiel ordered. She then sighed and ate the entirety of her right hand's palm, and grabbed onto his by the base, causing Naruto to grunt softly. He felt the extra moisture. Shamsiel pursed, and began to move towards his head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Naruto then felt something glow. Shamsiel smirked. His head turned into a pink light. 5, 6, 7. Naruto didn't care about dying. At this moment, he was turned on to the fullest. Who knew Succubus had such a tradition? Her were so soft, gently tapping the head carefully as possible. Naruto leaned slightly forward, trying to enjoy every second. 8, 9. Shamsiel slowly moved toward his, pecking it one last time. 10. Naruto's teeth grunted. All of a sudden, hot rope of semen began to travel down all the way to the pink cup that was on the ground. His was being extracted of its gooey goodness. He felt like a clown was pulling those handkerchiefs out of his, but in this case, it was a goofy succubus, taking ropes and ropes of his semen out of him. After the cup was filled, there was not a single drop of it on the floor. Shamsiel blushed and smiled. He then took the cup and placed it on her, and she drank the entire of his essence, downing it without getting it on her body to be safe. She didn't know how he was able to survive all of this. Amazing, so, his is the best. Shamsiel led her. Naruto collapsed on the bed as Shamsiel rushed to remove the handcuffs and the blindfolds. Sorry, again Naruto-kun. She rubbed the back of her head, showing a toothy grin that can rival his. Naruto's felt stars all around his head. Shamsiel sat down beside him completely. Letting his head rest between her thighs, she rubbed his head gently. It was only fair to let him rest. She then grabbed his hand and placed it on her stomach, blushing. Maybe someday, she whispered, ing his cheek. She continued to rub his blonde hair as he drifted to sleep. He couldn't move his legs after that ordeal. Naruto woke up with a sigh, feeling a delightful warm sensation on his and a pleasant smell of strawberries. His eyes fluttered open and were met with brown ember demonic eyes staring at him. Shamsiel's body was on top of his member, grinding him softly. She had a heartfelt smile. The two made eye contact, and she started to slowly grind him again. As her glided past his, the two were enjoying themselves so much that neither of them could stop. Naruto grabbed her hair, pulling on it lightly, earning an excited from the demoness. She pulled away, smirking down at him. Ohio Naruto-kun, hope you liked my little wake-up call. Shamsiel smiled at him. I loved your morning greeting. I just wish you hadn't woken me up. Naruto chuckled. Shamsiel blushed as her tail glazed his blonde hair. Sorry about that. She reached down and ate her, grinding him softly again, which elicited S from him. Hey, you know that ritual we did yesterday in the afternoon? You know the one where you just collapse as I extracted your sperm for me to drink? The demoness stated as a matter of fact. Yeah, I remember that. What's the big deal? Naruto questioned. Shamsiel giggled and then lowered her body to his groin area. She then unsheathed the sheets. Naruto noticed something different. He noticed a symbol on the top of his tada. When we did that erotic ritual yesterday, my marking on the bottom left side of my eye is also marked on the top of your member, meaning that you survived. She closed her eyes and gave him a wholesome smile. The symbol was like two opposite quotation marks with one a little higher than the other. What does this mean? Naruto asked, still looking at the marking. It means you survived the ritual, and that we're officially a couple. Not many human men survive that. It's only once in millennia. So consider yourself lucky, Shamsiel said, still smiling. Looks like she's marked her territory. Naruto couldn't help but blush slightly and nodded. He didn't think that his relationship with Shamsiel could get any more intimate than it already was, and it was now for a few days. She removed the cover completely, revealing herself fully to her lover. Naruto's flung open and at her, twitching. Shamsiel ate as her watered. His enormous had dripping on the side. She leaned down and ate his member, and looked up at him. Naruto bit his. His mind was too far gone with and wanted her to continue. You know, Naruto, we have a lot of things to do today. Tsunade needs to transition me to a kunoichi, and you still haven't shown me around Konoha. She teasingly pouted. Naruto tried to frown but couldn't. I wanted to do this all before. But you told me why you wanted me to understand Succubus and you as a person. He had out. His was wiggling and moving around in front of her face. Excuses, bad Naruto. Shamsiel giggled, ing his again. As a punishment, you get to ensure this. It's a shame I haven't done this. Shamsiel grinned mischievously. She then lifted the top red shirt she used as pajamas, which revealed her large. It was then that she wrapped her enormous reveal around his. The pink-haired enormous succubus began moving them up and down, covering the long, thick, and veinous surface of his man. "Oh, I'm so happy to give your first hit. Shame on me for not doing this before to you." Shamsiel flashed her hangs at him, turning Naruto on, even more. She needed all the sperm she can get from him for today. She kept up a steady rhythm, pumping herself up on him as he continued to rock back and forth. She then took control of her and upward. Naruto gasped and released at her entrance. Her hand moved lower and began stroking him while continuing to pump her, his growing and stretching under her mive. She then began to hiss. Shamsiel he head out, staring at her with a ed expression. Shamsiel her tail then stretched towards his hand and gave him to Pointy to play with. "You love my tail, don't you, you pervert?" She looked up at him. Her were caked with his pre. She began to him again while using her to move his up and down. "Do you want to all over me?" she asked and pressed her together stronger. Naruto answered by screaming and simply ming all over her face, and he let out a groan and squeezed her tail, causing her to wince. She ate his while her face was still gagging on his. He ate out, his sperm still spitting out large amounts of semen for Shamsiel to eat. She began to all of the she had on her body, and his altogether. She stood up with a wide grin immediately. "Ah, so full of life, your sperm is truly the best, Naruto-kun," Shamsiel complimented, their eyes both looking. "Hee, I'm glad you appreciate it, Shamsiel-chan." They both stood up and went to the shower. Naruto was washing her hair behind her, her neck, and playing with her horns, which made her shudder. She turned around and at his shoulder, then began his neck, making sure to leave some es on his skin. He stopped washing her hair and turned his head to her, giving her a quick peck on her s and went back to cleaning her hair. They got out of the shower and dressed quickly. They walked outside and went to Tsunade's office. They entered her office and sat down in front of her desk. She was reading over some doings. She put them aside and looked at the two. "Good morning, Naruto, Shamsiel." She greeted the pair. Both replied with good morning and bowed. "Shamsiel, are you all right?" She nodded softly. "I'm fine. Naruto has been taking good care of me. I'm in a much better place now." Shamsiel blushed, then looked at Naruto. He rubbed the back of his head. She had no idea that they had done other activities with each other, but considering that Naruto was her protector, she just thought they was friends. Tsunade supported them staying together because she had always noticed that Naruto was very lonely, so maybe Shamsiel could provide some friendship. After a conversation with Shamsiel about being a kunoichi, she deemed it appropriate not to test for anything, since she was already a sound ninja. Tsunade gave her the leaf hand and, "Protect it with your life." She looked at Shamsiel, she smiled, and while also giving her the traditional Konoha chuunin vest, black OTK socks, and a Konoha bandana, Shamsiel's eyes twinkled. "No problem, Bachan," Shamsiel giggled, and took the headband and the gear. Tsunade's grace towards Shamsiel disappeared upon hearing those words. "Did you teach her to call me that?" Tsunade glared at Naruto. His face was white as snow. "Nay, I didn't, but I guess she might have figured it out on her own?" He stuttered nervously. It was an answer that didn't sit well with Tsunade. Shamsiel just laughed. Tsunade then got up and punched Naruto. "Don't encourage her to be disrespectful to me like that," she scolded. Naruto flinched and held his stomach. Wincing on the floor, Shamsiel looked at Naruto. "Naruto just can't catch a break, huh?" She mumbled under her breath, looked at Tsunade, and bowed politely. "Sorry, Hokage-sama." She spoke up. She knew she couldn't do anything to Tsunade since she was Hokage, and she might find out about her true nature of being a succubus, so she had to play along. "That's quite all right," Tsunade answered. "If you're fine with it, Shamsiel, go prepare for your training," she said. "And Naruto, go to the training ground immediately. Sasuke and Kakashi won't be there though, as they are both going to be in the Land of Iron for a few months." "What?" Naruto stated, that he was shocked and looked at Tsunade. "And you're telling me this now?" "Sorry, Naruto, it was kind of late news." She chuckled, and Naruto sighed. "That's why I didn't see them for the past few days," he thought. "Anyway, I want you to report to the training ground and take Shamsiel with you. Sakura and your new sensei Anko will be there for the time being." "Anko?" Naruto gasped. They both knew each other, but there was always an indifference. Naruto always wanted to talk with her but never really got the chance. "Anko?" Shamsiel grinned. Her eyes, she remembered seeing her when she was spying on Naruto. She had black-blue tinted hair that was spiky and had a ponytail, and custom-made outfit that was a thin metal mesh highlighting her C-cup. Shamsiel turned pink. The succubus wanted to pounce on her, but it would compromise her mission with Naruto. She was going to be training them? Shamsiel led her. This was going to be one hell of an experience for them. This was not what she expected to happen in such a short amount of time. "She's a prodigy at kunoichi combat. You'll work hard, you will become stronger for the sake of this village, Tsunade said. We shall continue our session later, Shamsiel, now go train. They both nodded, and Shamsiel clung to Naruto's arm. She had hit the jackpot. Naruto and Shamsiel were walking hand in hand, with Shamsiel laying her head on Naruto's shoulder, her eyes closed taking in his scent. After finally becoming a kunoichi by devious means, she finally felt secure, with the man that she loved, but she also thought about certain eye candy. Hey Naruto, are you interested in a threesome with me and Anko? She asked, biting her and blushing. Naruto quickly turned to face her. She was smiling dumbfoundedly. Well, I don't know about that, Shamsiel, he said, turning away from her. She took his hand, turning to look at him again. Why not? She asked. She didn't care anymore. It was just an innocent question. She wanted to know how he'd react. She's a powerful kunoichi. I know you find her attractive. Succubus can tell just by looking at men's thoughts. She whispered the last part, and you've jerked off to her more than once. Her tail appeared out of nowhere. Only she and Naruto can see it due to a spell that she placed. Her tail was tickling his pants. These babies have seen a lot of activity during the past few days, she quietly said. Don't think I could, you know. Shamsiel looked down and sighed deeply, closing her eyes for a second. Her tail disappeared back into her body. You're too soft. Naruto was confused. What does that mean? She's really angry. I'm a succubus. It's in my nature to please men and women. We don't need to have permission to have with anyone. That goes against our nature. And I'm confused by your personality. Sometimes you want to just ravage me and my brains out, she gestured. And then sometimes you crawl back into your shell and act like such an innocent angel who doesn't over big-head succubus like me. Shamsiel puffed out her at him. She then leaned close to his right cheek. But we all know that's not true, she whispered, making his skin crawl. I know that you want us to till there's no tomorrow. He looked at her. She looked beautiful with her short pink silky hair and amber eyes that looked so innocent yet evil. He growled and then grabbed her hand and led her to an alleyway where they wouldn't be seen. He had her hard and pushed her against the wall. They were both panting heavily as Naruto moved on top of her. He slowly began to trail yes along her neck, stopping at her jawline when suddenly she started to laugh hysterically. You're such a pervert. She yelled in his ear and pushed him away. Naruto stared deeply into her eyes. Ironic given that she a UL demon. Shut up, you know I love you, Shamsiel-chan, and I don't. It's just that you might be the death of me, he said, motorboating her that were from the outer layer of her kunoichi vest, causing her to giggle. I think I'll enjoy killing you. Then again, I'd rather kill you than any other man, she replied with her moving to his neck and ing on the spot. Naruto groaned ly and put a hand on her lower back, trying to push her off. Shamsiel, we have to go. Naruto then eyed her in protest. You know you changed the subject again. We're supposed to be going to the training grounds, and you wanted us to get Anko for a threesome, he said, staring at her. She nodded. Oh yeah, she said sarcastically, we'll go now, let's go. She hopped up and pulled him out of the alleyway. XXXX. It was 1 p.m., Naruto and Shamsiel and they finally made their way to the training grounds to meet Anko and Sakura. When they finally arrived they were busy sparring. Shamsiel looked over at Anko. She was in awe of her when she got a closer look at the snake mistress, who was considered one of the most beautiful mistresses in all of Konoha. Her purple hair matched with her brown hair turned on Shamsiel. She bit her as her turned red. Damn, the woman in this village is really cute, more than in any other one. She's almost wearing see-through fishnets, Shamsiel thought. The succubus continued to eye her, thinking of continuing much fun they will have tonight until Naruto broke her train of thought when he announced their arrival. Konnichiwa Anko-sensei. Naruto waved at her. Anko was busily sparring with Sakura, immediately turning her head upon hearing her name. Hey there Naruto, Anko wholesomely said. Hey, Sakura, Naruto said, a little disheveled. Sakura rolled her eyes but saved face because she was having a good sparring match with Anko, and she didn't want to lose her way. Hey Naruto, she said, faking a smile towards him. She never really liked Naruto. To her he was still a kid who always tried his best to annoy everyone, and it didn't rub off on her very well. Anko and Sakura looked at Naruto's mysterious companion who accompanied him to their training grounds. Shamsiel pouted and nudged Naruto, waiting for an introduction. Oh guys, this is Shamsiel-chan. She's from the Sound Village. I saw her in a forest crying, and she said she was running away from her abusive father. Isn't that right, Shamsiel-chan? Naruto asked the hidden succubus. That's right, Shamsiel smiled. Ever since Naruto took me in, I've never felt so happy. He's my knight in shining armor. Shamsiel then did something bold in front of everyone. She clung on to Naruto's arm and gave him a quick peck on his, and Anko and Sakura froze. Oh myth, it's so cute, Anko commented, trying her best not to sound awkward. Well, welcome to Konoha, Shamsiel, Tsunade did mention we had a new student, and that's really affectionate, Anko said, blinking her eyes, still shocked about the little. Naruto stood there looking at Shamsiel. Were they going to keep their relationship a secret? They never really discussed that. Sakura had an annoyed look. Who was this girl? Why was she so clingy to Naruto, a perceived outcast? Hi, I'm Sakura Haruna, nice to meet you, she said, trying to plaster a smile despite her recent events. Naruto turned his head to see Shamsiel. He was praying to Kami this would go over well, despite not trying to like Sakura because he was already with Shamsiel. He would hope they would be at least cordial with each other. Shamsiel then looked at her. Hi Sakura, I'm glad to be here, though your forehead is pretty big and scary. We're going to be amazing teammates. She grinned, giving 2 thumbs up. Sakura's body turned into a white husk. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. Cha! Did you tell her that, Naruto? She growled at him, cracking her knuckles. Not this again. Naruto thought he was already beaten by Tsunade due to Shamsiel's remarks. And no, I swear, Naruto stated, trying to calm her down. Anko had to intervene before Sakura was going to send him to a hospital or 10 feet under. Alright, enough standing around, Shamsiel, since you're new here. We're going to be old school, Anko stated, easing everyone's tensions. Oh, what's the challenge? I'm sure I can handle it. Shamsiel puffed out her, smiling in a why matter. She removed herself from Naruto and walked toward Anko. XXXXXXX. Naruto and Sakura stood by the side. He was wincing due to the punch Sakura gave him on the shoulder, needing some band-aids to cover his wounds. They were watching Shamsiel and Anko on the field looking directly at each other. Anko took 2 bells from her shirt pocket and pulled them out in front of Shamsiel. I'm gonna be testing you for your agility. So we're going to do something simple to get you warmed up. In order to pee this test, you have to grab these 2 bells from me. Heh, that sounds simple enough. Shamsiel ran towards Anko, trying to get the 2 objects from them. Anko simply dodged and quickly swung her hand that held the bells away from Shamsiel. They circled each other, either willing to give ground. Shamsiel charged for Anko, but she jumped into the air. She kicked her leg high and landed a powerful kick on the left of Shamsiel's jaw, sending her flying backward. Shamsiel was completely dazed and fell back to the ground. Shamsiel! Naruto winced. He then ran towards her, trying to get her back up. Are you okay? He asked, caressing her. Shamsiel blushed and looked up to him. I'm okay, sorry, and Naruto. I promise to be strong for you guys, especially you. She whispered, and he then lifted her up. Sakura saw this and began to frown. Quit trying to seduce her, you loser, she thought. Now no coaching, please. The snake mistress said, oh, and a reminder. It's 1 p.m. now. You have about an hour to get these bells from my hand. 55 minutes later. Shamsiel, despite being an arch-succubus from another realm, and could easily turn men into husks and ash, was at her wit's end. She tried everything to get the bells from Anko, jumping towards her, using her kunai, and even punching and kicking her repeatedly, but Anko would just move out of the way, dodging each of her attacks. But in the end, she was able to grab one of the bells from Anko's hands. After a few minutes of struggle, Shamsiel threw a punch at her, which made her lose her balance. She then thought of something she hadn't done before. She could turn invisible. She then made a series of hand jutsus. Inviba Sakaba no Jutsu, she stealthily said. All of a sudden she disappeared. Anko's eyes widened, and Sakura's jaw dropped. She could have done that before, she grumbled. Hey, yeah? I forgot she told me. Naruto chuckled awkwardly. When no one could see her, she then used her tail and grabbed the last bell. Anko didn't feel anything unusual, but it didn't feel like a hand touched her. Yoink! She took the bell. Anko was shocked. I guess you won, Anko stated. Something about that rubbed her the wrong way, but she just sighed and ignored it. Naruto came running towards Shamsiel. That was amazing, Shamsiel-chan. I'm so proud of you. Naruto then jumped on Shamsiel, wrapping his arms around her. Shamsiel's heart was beating ly in her. The succubus joyfully laughed, embracing his warm touch. Her flared up with a mild blush. Shamsiel could not wipe the sarcastic smile from her as Naruto's arms continued to embrace her, nuzzling the back of her neck. Sakura's jaw dropped. That was a little too much for her. What was going on between them? XXXXXX. Unbelievable, Mephosayura, Shahar said, lowering her eyes. She was looking at an orb that was showing Naruto and her semi-estranged daughter Shamsiel, holding hands and embracing one another. How did a human survive UAL intercourse with a succubus? She stated. She then looked at the montages of their relationship. She saw how many times Naruto would penetrate Shamsiel without being killed and shrivel to dust. His sperm was just too potent, and Shamsiel was obviously obsessed, almost drunk off his sperm. Naruto would fondle her, and then she in return would hiss so many times while laying him down on their bed. taking his as it tickles her curse, and in many instances Naruto would just pull out and spray the succubus with his semen, giving her a delicious meal. He would always caress her after their intercourse, ing her forehead and praising her for everything, being grateful that she came into his life and showing affection. He didn't care that she was a succubus, in fact it turned him on even more. She was more than happy to start her life in Konoha living with Naruto. Mephisto blushed, her legs were tingling. The fact that Naruto Uzumaki was able to exercise her daughter like no other man was telling. Imagine what would happen if he met a woman like her. Imagine if his thing was in between her. She opened her eyes and realized her thoughts. She slammed her fist down on her royal chair and screamed. She was jealous. Not only had a human shinobi survived a succubus, but he was courting and admiring her. Shamsiel had mated with Naruto enough times to make them official by ing his member, and placing a symbol on the top of his groin area, symbolizing their relationship. All of a sudden a female demon flew into the room. Mama, what's wrong? In came Farika Mia Shahar asking the question, the sister of Shamsiel, an arch-succubus who was renowned for her appeal even for a succubus. She always finished off her harem with tremendous speed, and unlike Shamsiel, she loved having a harem and wasn't picky on the species. To them they were just her utility foods, nothing more, nothing and nothing less. She was beautiful and elegant. She had long red hair, red skin, purple eyes, and soft pink. Her eyes were bright. She often wore leather boots with leather black panties, combined with her leather jacket which didn't even cover her entirely, rather puffing them out. Take a look at what your sister has been. She's been with this young man named Naruto for several days, and he hasn't died from with her. Mephisto pointed at the orb, and it showed a montage of their relationship. Farika heart hitched. He was pumping tons of semen in her greedy body, taking every bit of it. He had also ejaculated everywhere every time, on her face, stomach, horns, bat wings and tail. Whoa, he's amazing. Imagine what he would do when he would see us. He's really cute too. Shamsiel lucked out. But how? I don't know, and look, she even marked him with the symbol on her left eye. Does she want to marry him or something? Succubus have rarely ever married their foods before, but it looks like Shamsiel doesn't see him as food. I want him. Farika said calmly. Imagine what a healthy human like that would do to me. She blushed. She then began to herself furiously. Mephisto glanced at her daughter. It couldn't be helped, considering her and several thousand succubuses were a band of crazed demonesses, to begin with. Mephisto's brain then hatched an idea. Why don't you go to this Konoha and at the right time, you kidnap Naruto and bring him to me? So we can properly introduce ourselves. Then leave some essence on a portal or something. It's about time we had a family reunion with Shamsiel. She then reached her hands and Ed Furka's, and at that moment, her S began to squirt everywhere. Some liquids even landing on Mephisto's. The leader of the succubus chuckled and had some of her daughters on her upper. Furka sighed piantly, her rising with red crimson as she auditioned. She nodded slowly. Yes, my queen. She quietly stated and disappeared out of sight. 9 p.m. After training, Naruto walked around his large bedroom. He was in his orange boxers, and poking out. Shamsiel promised to bring Anko through a portal so they could have a threesome. Ever since Shamsiel saw Anko while she was spying on Naruto, she was always a target to the snake mistress, and now she had an opportunity to both of them. All of a sudden a pink circle appeared out of his room which revealed Shamsiel and Anko. Tada! I told you I would bring her. Shamsiel smiled. She was going to enjoy the event that was going to take place. Wohis poked a hole on the outside of the button of his boxers. They were both wearing see-through nighties. See, your body is honest, Shamsiel said. Naruto stared at both of them. They were wearing see-through nighties. Anko's was purple with black panties, while Shamsiel's was pink with pink panties. Anko's face was completely blank and void of emotion. Does she know what's going on? It seems like her mind is somewhere else? Naruto asked. I used some mind control to subdue her. She didn't know because I did it behind her back while she was done taking a shower. Her mind was completely obedient to our will. Wow. That was all Naruto can say. Anyways, let's have fun. We didn't just want to ogle each other all night. She then pushed Anko, who landed in Naruto's arms. They both looked at each other. Naruto had to admit, this was pretty amazing. And Naruto, let's enjoy ourselves tonight with Shamsiel, any? She then pushed him on the bed and removed his boxers, ing on his rock hard. Naruto's back was totally on the bed, ing as his was ing into her wet. Shamsiel blushed watching all of this unfold. I also got this, she whispered. Naruto then whispered that Shamsiel was now wearing a pink strap-on. She got on the bed and positioned her fake into her entrance. Naruto smiled and nodded. Shamsiel deserved to have fun too. She then the dildo Anko, who ed while Naruto's. He then began to get greedy. He grabbed her head and pushed deeper. wanting her to make of his with her soft. Such a naughty greedy human. I'm really having to share with you, aren't I? Shamsiel stated. She was grabbing ankles. Naruto stuck his out playfully at Shamsiel, who did the same. Naruto and Shamsiel, after several hours of having with Anko, were reaching their climaxes. He was ing her rapidly as Anko's was ing Shamsiel's, and they both grunted ly. Naruto began to shoot sperm Anko's, making her S melt with his sperm. Shamsiel screamed out in pleasure, as her S sprayed all over her face, covering the bed and even the walls. Her was stretched out, proud of their work. What a slutty succubus, I wonder how many times you've had before. Naruto panted, and they both collapsed beside each other with Anko in the middle, several thousands of times. But I'm still as tight as a virgin, you know. She grinned, blushing. Naruto had a goofy smile. Succubus was also immune from having any UAL diseases. He had an amazing life with Shamsiel, from introducing her to Konoha and giving her a tour, to her punching Sakura for punching Naruto. It felt like this was all a dream to him, but it was really real. You're the best, Shamsiel-chan. I'm going to pump you with lots of semen. I don't even know how I'm living, but I guess I'm just that special. He then moved towards her. He teased her by poking his on her hard, then poking her with his. She giggled, opening her, and then ing him off. After several minutes of him ing in her, he had out in ecstasy. Waves of semen were splashed her, and then on her face. She lapped up her meal. Such a healthy. She whispered in delight. Give me your tail, Naruto ordered. She nodded and her tail slithered out and he wrapped his with it. Giving her a tail job, he jerked off his with her tail. As it was getting, Naruto tensed and then sprayed sperm on her tail and bat wings. So Naruto truly has a fetish for my tail. She teased. Naruto nodded evilly and just ed both her. She couldn't get enough of the pink-haired succubus. He wanted to be in this position forever. A little awkward for Anko, who was sprawled out on the bed, pet out from all the she endured in the mind-controlled state. Shamsiel ed out as Naruto ed her, enjoying the taste of her milk. Naruto-kun, you're going to drive me to insanity with your body-ravaging mine, Shamsiel stated, ing as was being caressed and molested by this human UAL demigod. Isn't that the point? I want to feed you, Naruto stated, jerking his on her face, poking her and her nose, and even touching her fangs with them, which made him grow 2 inches. Let's go for another round, you're still hungry, Naruto declared, jumping on Shamsiel. She screamed in delight. Positioning his at her cursed. Shamsiel nodded slowly. She was a slave to his. As a succubus, this was pretty degrading even for their standards, but she didn't care about anything at that moment. Naruto ed her and began to again. Her screams were muffled by their s raping the hell out of each other. XXXX. 1 a.m. Shamsiel's whole body was matted with dry semen. She teleported Anko to her own bed before sleeping with Naruto. Their bodies were disorganized on the bed as they were in a deep state of slumber, when all of a sudden a red demonic teleportation circle came into their room. Farika gently made her teleportation circle go away quickly. The room's aroma was covered in their stench of ecstasy and fluids. They had just finished a wild night. She walked gingerly to the bedside and saw Naruto, eyes wide shut. We finally caught you, Farika grinned evilly, her eyes looking directly at his, which was probably worn out due to all the he and Shamsiel were having. She then made a sound barrier to engulf Shamsiel's body so she won't hear. Darkness, just a void of darkness. He couldn't see anything. There was no light, not even a flash of glimmer near him. He was chained on a squished bed. At least it wasn't something on the surface. But that still doesn't excuse what happened to him. Naruto was trying to remember the previous events. He in intercourse with Shamsiel, his succubus girlfriend, and Anko. Remembering that she begged him for a threesome with her eyes glanced at her. His body was entirely from top to bottom. As Shamsiel he mumbled, This isn't funny, please let me loose, I am sorry. Naruto sat there chained and bound as he had for what he thought was several hours. He woke up in a dazed, confused state. The only things that helped him were the memories he was trying to soak up. Did Shamsiel cause this? Was this all a trap? Was she truly planning on killing him or something? Shamsiel, please let me go. Heh, you really do think about her all the time, a voice called out. Opening the door, Naruto's ears perked up. Shamsiel-chan? Wrong. She then crawled seductively over to him. Naruto could feel the bed moving around. He was nervously shaking even though he was bound. A slender arm suddenly grabbed his member, jerking him softly. She then removed the blindfold from his face, and Naruto almost flinched in surprise. Red lush hair and a tail similar to Shamsiel's but only black. Her smell filled his nostrils, turning him on even more. She crawled on his body until they were face to face. Who are you? He didn't even get the chance to understand who or what she was. Only her pressing onto his. She leaned down lower, rubbing her on his. Their S were rolling around and playing with each other. His members stood tall and hard. After their S let go of each other for some air, she smiled. My name is Farika Mia Shahar, the sister of Shamsiel. You know the succubus you were ing? Naruto's eyes lit up. They were pretty similar, to the red hair and the similar skin tones. Why are you doing this to me? Where am I? She smiled and began to grind on his, eliciting soft S from him. Since you ask so nicely, I will explain. My mom rules Sanctum Samencus and is in charge of the largest mystical industry in the universe. We're demons who love to have intercourse with a large harem of orcs, goblins, and elves. Shamsiel didn't like this, so she bolted off. She stated, her tail rubbing his ball sacks. Yeah, she told me all about this. She told me that you guys had a fallout. That's right, but my mom showed me an orb of montages between you and her, the end lovemaking. She sighed, her turned red. And then I got jealous. How can she find a human like this who didn't even die from UAL intercourse with a succubus? This thing between your legs is pretty special. Farika then moved towards his, and added 3 times, making him shiver. Even though she marked you, she can't keep you all to herself. I want to have with you also. Succubus have no shame on how we have. It's just sperm that we devour, that's it. Naruto tried to frown. I love Shamsiel, you're not her, you'll never be her. Naruto growled. He was turned on, but he didn't like getting kidnapped and bound like this. Your big says different, Farika chided, glancing downward. Be warned, I'm a lot stronger Yuli than Sham, so you might wither and die. And this is my first human before, it's a lot different looking. Farika smiled, smirking her way through this. She didn't care if this was a one-time thing, she needed to have with this shinobi. Instinctively he tried to move, only to be held down by the chains. The perfect sound barrier was placed her room, which was converted to a dungeon for this occasion. Shit, I might actually die, and Shamsiel is still sleeping in my room. Crap, she's even 1,000 times hornier than Shamsiel. What did I get myself into? Don't feel too bad, you're amazing, you survived many S with my sister, but I think this might be the end of your story, human. Farika stood up and then pulled off her leather panties and tossed them on his face. Naruto could smell her aroma. She then lowered her body towards his, and as soon as she came down on his member, she said, How are you liking my S? It's softer than my sister's, huh? She asked, blushing slightly at her question. Naruto just sighed, he couldn't move. She then moved her voluptuous body upward and downward on his. Farika smiled, and erotically, her eyes then lit up. Wow, you're just poked and rubbed the of my, it expended, that amazing. Here's a treat for your amazing job so far. She then removed her small tiny jacket that did an awful job covering her, and leaned downward towards Naruto. Drink me, you humans love big. She teased. Naruto leaned up and latched his on her right. NGH. She cried out, grabbing her to rub them against his face. It's making me shiver, she said as the suction made her harden. She lifted one of her hands and touched her, stroking them sensually. She looked at Naruto. Don't think I'm going to be soft on you because you're pleasing me. Farika then sped up her speed with his, going up and down as quickly as possible. Naruto could feel everything that she was giving him. His member was rubbing her cursed with so much ease. His fluids were building up of him. Oh, are you going to and die me? Me and then die, your body can't handle me. And then die. She screamed. Naruto's teeth clenched fiercely. He didn't want to die like this, but he still had a lot to live for. It's now or never. He closed his eyes, but as he was about to come, he felt a surge of energy. His chakra was coming out of his body. All of a sudden he broke the chains and then was on top of Farika. Impossible! She screamed. How did you manage to break free? Humans shouldn't be that strong. I'm gonna be the future Hokage someday. Thanks for still motivating me. He then smirked evilly. Farika gasped and tried to run away, but Naruto grabbed her right leg and dragged her closer to him. I'm gonna have my revenge for you taking me away from Shamsiel. You're probably not gonna walk for a few days. His jumped happily at the vulnerable sight of the sadistic arch-succubus. Farika she then realized there was no choice and just surrendered. She then used her to stretch her out, making Naruto drool. I deserve this, please use me as you like, she stated softly, looking up at this human UAL demigod in front of her. He smirked. He then proceeded to jump on her senseless. They were left to rape to hell out of each other. Naruto shoved his Farika again, causing her to scream "Ly. I'm gonna have vengeance on you. You're going to enjoy your being a gaping hole with my sperm. I can defeat any succubus." The shinobi boastfully. Me Naruto, destroy my, I'm getting molested by your huge and me, your, my. She gasped, screaming from ecstasy as drool slid on her. Naruto just as he did with Shamsiel her face softly. Farika was close in pleasure. Naruto was ing and ing her face, she had ly and grabbed her, ing her brains out. Naruto then released his bloating from her, and then tickled her anus with it. She gulped and nodded slowly, even though she was sued too, this was a bit different. He then speared her, causing her to scream, inch by inch he deeper, was dribbling between her thighs as it pulled between her knees. Naruto grinned, as he was ing her for many minutes. Take my semen, Furika-sama, take it all! Yes, give me your UAL semen, give me everything. She had. Naruto groaned as he felt like the top of his was going to explode of her. Within seconds, ropes of semen then started to spill on her, and out. He showered her and body with laces and laces of his own semen. Her red hair, her leather boots, he then turned around and sprayed her, stomach, and tail. Furika's was wide open, her face was covered in his sticky semen. So much. So much. She had as she swiped his semen and put at her, savoring the flavor. The sadistic succubus then closed her eyes and pet out. XXXXXX. Shamsiel was lying down on the bed sleeping. She was tossing and turning until she felt like something was out. There was no blonde shinobi beside of her. She then fluttered her eyes open. It was 4 a.m. And Naruto? Shamsiel groggily said. There was no response back. She then slowly stood up and turned on the lampshade. He wasn't there. Her eyes were wide open now. Naruto? She asked again. No response again. She then stood up and looked around. She then noticed something she couldn't ignore. She smelled the room and noticed a certain smell that she could pinpoint. It was a spiral spell that Succubus could conjure to teleport somewhere. She gasped. She knew exactly who would take him. That bitch. Her face was filled with rage. Her hair turned white. Her eyes turned blood red. Her one piece then turned red. She then quickly made a teleporter to go to the exact location where he was kept. Excellent work, Naruto. A figure then opened the door, clapping. Naruto turned around and noticed an older succubus who had darker skin and blonde hair, with golden horns protruding from their side. Who are you? Naruto asked, standing up. The older demon smiled. My name is Mephasayura Shahar, leader of Sanctum Semenkus. That succubus you've just had your way with is my daughter and Shamsiel. They really for you? She giggled. Naruto blushed. He looked at the way she was dressed. Her were literally not being covered due to the erotic dress she was wearing. Naruto gulped, being turned on again. His was raising upon seeing this succubus queen. Era, are you going to have with every succubus in the world? She blushed. She then grabbed his hands and made him touch both her. These babies are really real, you know. She blushed. She then grabbed his face and pulled him down to her, allowing him to motorboat them. All of a sudden Shamsiel came through her portal. Furika! She screamed. She looked at the environment. Furika's room was a dungeon. Her body was on the bed, she had semen covered on her, and was pet out. And as she turned around she saw Naruto, enjoying the embrace of her mother. Hey Shamsiel, it's not what you think. He then released his head from her and smiled nervously. What's with the white hair? She sighed. I knew they wouldn't control themselves when they saw you. Sorry Shamsiel, but you're lucky to have a man like this to yourself. It's only fair you get to share him. Mephasa smiled, making Naruto blush. Oh please, you guys have a harem, he's mine. Make love to those arrogant pig orcs for all I care, Shamsiel growled, showing her fangs. Naruto then gingerly walked towards her and ate her pianely. Naruto then used his hands to feel her. Although not as big as her mom, he could fairly say that they were the best. Thank Kami you're still alive. I thought she would have killed you or something. Heh, it's going to take an entire succubus army to stop me. I don't know how I did it, maybe it's just my life essence or something that's protecting me. You know Naruto, you're the only human who survived 2 succubi before, no humans did that before. Maybe your semen is just really potent. Mephasa shrugged at the possibility, and his will always be mine. Shamsiel then glared at her mother and playfully stuck her out. Mephasa rolled her eyes. Well, we better get going, we have missions to do after we get a good rest, Naruto suggested. Shamsiel nodded and clung to his arm. She wanted to kill Furika for laying a hand on her man. Era, you're just going to leave like that? Why don't you guys rest here for at least tonight? I haven't seen you in over 7 moons. Mephasa complained. Besides, Naruto needs to learn more about Succubus and our history. She winked playfully at him, causing him to blush. Remember, he was still at this point, so everything was for them to see. Shamsiel hissed, but felt really tired. She didn't want to cast another teleportation spell because she was exhausted, and it might cause some further dangerous delays. Fine, she sighed, but I'll be watching you. You better not touch him. Era, my daughter will be staying home, the queen and Semenkus smiled. Shamsiel, see to it that Naruto takes a warm bath so you both can get situated. I'll be right back. She then walked out of the room, leaving them by themselves. Shamsiel sighed and took him to her old room where she was living before she set off to meet him. Gah, I still can't believe she kidnapped you, sorry about that, I'm going to kill her when she wakes up. She hissed, but sighed, shaking her head. They then went upstairs. Yeah, but it can't be helped, I think all of your sisters and probably your mom wants to meet her, Naruto smirked. That's what I was afraid of, we're all crazed demons. The moment they find someone like you, honestly you might not survive all of us. She giggled, you're the first succubus slayer in recorded history or layer. Shamsiel shrugged. Shamsiel and Naruto were walking the palace upstairs. Although it had a dark eerie vibe to it, it was really cozy, Naruto had to admit. It must be nice to be a part of this succubus royalty. The palace theme was red and dark purple. Come on, I'll show you around before you take your shower, Shamsiel stated as they were walking upstairs. Naruto gulped. He was pretty excited. He was going to his girlfriend's official room. With her. Alone. He started to grow another the boxers that Mephisi gave him. Why didn't he see this coming? Naruto honey, you okay? She stated. As Naruto slowed his pace down, she gave a dopey smile. Completely oblivious to what was going to happen the moment they stepped her room. Her own personal kingdom. Sure, she told me she hadn't been home in a long time, but it was still her private space. Naruto, relax, let's just enjoy ourselves here for a little bit. She grabbed his hand tightly, leaned in, and ate his. She narrowed her eyes softly, and placed her hands on his bulge. Besides, I'm pretty hungry, you know. She stated, no one is going to hurt you here, I'll make sure of that. I'm really strong, you know, don't you trust me? She stated, her ember eyes gazing upon his. Yes. He said softly. He felt pretty guilty having with Farika, but she did kidnap him and try to make him into a husk of ash. As they approached her door, Naruto noticed several paintings of various succubus, and other erotic paintings. He couldn't also help but notice Shamsiel's painting was there between her mom and Furkia. Perhaps she wasn't lying about the hierarchy. Still holding his hand, she slowly opened the door. Naruto took a few steps forward, and after a razor second of hesitation, he looked around. Shamsiel's room was very messy, with one-piece swimsuits, tridents, posters depicting erotic acts, and several books on her bed. Upon further inspection, they were books and manuals on how succubus can lure prey. Despite her not visiting her palace in a long time, it was still in the same state. So, what do you think of my room? She stated that she moved some books off the bed and placed them at her nearby desk. Her room was red/pink colored theme and had a large window on top of her bed. On the right side of the room was the bathroom, which had a big mirror and a huge tub. Naruto could barely contain his excitement. His body was starting to twitch and tremble slightly. A lot cleaner than mine. He stated that he then sat down on the edge of her bed, with Shamsiel following suit. So many different things, he remarked in wonder. He noticed a doll that kind of looked like her sitting on the bed. What's that? Naruto asked curiously. He then reached on the side of both her pillows where the doll was and grabbed it. HM? Oh right, that's Shami. Shami the succubus. I should have taken her with me. She picked it up from his hands and held it up to him. I've had this scene since I was a kid, you know. She looks just like me. She then began to move it on Naruto's face. Shami was pecking his. I'm gonna your semen, she said in a really high-pitched voice. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at this, hard. Something about his girlfriend's childlike antics was really cute. Hey, what's so funny? She pouted. Ah. Ha. Who? Wiping a tear from his eye. It's just really funny how you would have a doll. I kind of expected it. Hey, I'm not a monster, you know. What were you expecting in my room? Skulls or something? Shamsiel said. She sat down beside him again. Kind of, yeah. He shrugged. She rolled her eyes and gave him on the cheek. I'm gonna start running the hot water in the bathtub now. You need to be squeaky clean. You have Farika's germs all over you, she stated. She then looked down at his boxers. Naruto's bulge was all there for her to see, and her slit eyes fluttered lusciously. Naruto's heart skipped a beat. Shamsiel being a succubus, and noticing his twitching every time was a big turn-on for him. Oh, do you want to join me? He asked nervously. Shamsiel turned around to see him. She then made a scowl. She then walked slowly up to him and sat down on his lap, straddling the shinobi. What do you think? I'm really hungry. And it's good for us to just sit down and relax, just you and me. We need to talk about a lot of things in Konoha. You did tell me we had to do missions together. She then leaned in, their faces centimeters away from each other. So let's just enjoy ourselves for the time being, any? She then grabbed his hands and let him touch her, rubbing them gently. Naruto then grabbed her one-piece swimsuit and gently removed the slits away from her. Undoing them at lightning speed, he began to rub his face in between her. Shamsiel ed in ecstasy, causing Shamsiel to shiver, as her tail began to brush up on his body. Naruto stopped doing that for a second and admired Shamsiel's body. She had long, beautifully shaped legs that went up into her amazing thighs and super cute, but everything about the succubus was great. Her stomach was soft yet very firm. Her full luscious that Naruto loved to peck with his. Her pink hair had 2 strands pointing on top of her head. And her were so amazing, although not as big as Tsunade's or Anko's. They were still great, and that's all that mattered. "You're beautiful," Naruto whispered, barely hard enough for Shamsiel to hear it. "What was that, Naruto? Did you say something? Did you say something about my looks and how I'm drop-dead gorgeous?" Shamsiel boasted, teasing him. She moved her back and forth, feeling every bit of his. Shamsiel felt like drooling over his. "Open your for a moment, I need to give you a special gift because we used the tub," Shamsiel ordered. Naruto had no choice but to agree. He did what he was told. She then her softly, rolling her. Softly, and a strand of saliva came down from her and into his. Naruto ed softly. He was really getting turned on by his girlfriend doing this lead act to him. After a few seconds she stopped. "What do you think? I'm really tasty, right?" She teased. She then leaned in and ed on his neck, her fangs scraping them softly. "Ah." He ed. "How are you liking my hickeys?" She muffled. Naruto then all of a sudden lifted her up, his boxers falling down in the process, which left a hard arch dripping with rubbing her stomach. "Come on, let's go. I need to feed you," he stated, his pointing at the bathroom door, her hands caressing her. Shamsiel's heart began to flutter. She addition. She then took his hand. XXXXXX. "Tsunade's probably wondering why I haven't done a mission for about a week now," Naruto stated. They were sitting down on the bathtub with Shamsiel in front of him. "It can't be helped. We just saw each other and besides we did train a little bit with Anko. But I wasn't too concerned about that," Shamsiel said softly. She kept rubbing on his member when he sat down. "Yeah, right after you wanted to me to death." He glared playfully. "I said I was sorry." She pouted. She then began to grind on him again. Yeah, he said while rolling his eyes. He liked the way her rubbed against his under the water. He then grabbed her, trading pleasures with her, and she sighed in contentment. Blushing Kami. But then she noticed something. He was going a little bit slower for her liking. She turned around. "Hey Naruto, is anything the matter? He was surprised to feel his girlfriend pulling away from him. She then floated to the other side of the bathtub to look squarely at him. "Is something bothering you?" She decided to be upfront. "You have a distant look on your face." "Distant? What do you mean?" "I'm fine, how can I not be?" He chuckled, his heart lowered. Was he that obvious? He sometimes hated his facial expressions. Her tail then slithered up to him and maggot his chin. She looked him in the eye. "Please talk to me, Naruto." "I won't bite." Sighing, the blonde looked up at her. "Well, yeah, something has been on my mind today," he began to say. He then saw her eyes turning gly, and her facial expression worry. "Oh no, not like that. I swear it's not." The shinobi looked back at her, frantically urging the succubus not to get the wrong idea. "Well, it's kind of similar to that, but really different." He sighed, making sure to choose his words correctly. "This week has been really crazy. We met and tried to me to death. You became a ninja all of a sudden, and all the other things we did together." He blushed. He then floated over to her and held her hands. "And after all that, we're still here. Together, Shamsiel, you mean so much to me. I don't care if this is weird love, but I love you. You're the only one who's ever been this close to me and has treated me with any sort of dignity. You mean so much to me, Shamsiel, so much." It was Shamsiel's turn to blush. She grasped his hands. "Naruto, and I'm just worried, after all our missions, we might somehow get separated and..." She then saw tears form around his eyes. "I don't know, it's just scaring me," and her tail gently touched his. Shamsiel's tail cupped his face. "You know that's not going to happen." She gingerly stroked his. He smiled weakly. "I know, but I promise to take care of you. I will take care of everything that happens to you. I'll protect you no matter what. Do you believe me?" Her smile was warm, it seemed genuine. Naruto stared deep into her eyes. "I'll also take care of you, Shamsiel, with all your needs as a succubus. Thanks for picking me to mate he." She smiled. "That's what I wanted to hear." She then poked his nose with hers and began to lower her hands into the water. "You cute little ninja, you." She chuckled. She then grabbed a hold of his. "I'm starving, Naruto, so please." He smiled and stood up, his pointing straight at her. Her was watering. "I need to take care of all your needs, right?" He then poked his on her and rubbed them on her horns, trying to imprint them. She nodded slowly and in a heartfelt mode. "When you're about to climax, please spray my face any?" She then ed his a few times. "Why yeah," he ed softly. She then giggled and engulfed his. Naruto sighed happily as Shamsiel ed on his. taking it deep into her wet as she slid her over the opening and began laying it. Ah yes Shamsiel, it take my sperm. Naruto hummed as Shamsiel continued to play with his dick. The shinobi's S of thankfulness prompted Shamsiel to him like a lollop, only much rougher. The slutty succubus princess ate on him like a true slut, and Naruto began to release his pre-ejaculatory fluids onto her, seasoning it with his delicious flavor. Shamsiel closed her eyes and ate onto his as she bobbed her head up and down due to Naruto grabbing her horns and having his way with them. Naruto felt his climax coming up as she let out a scream. The succubus continued her magic on her blonde lover, wanting and needing to taste his sweet. Shamsiel began to deep-throat him, and Naruto let out a high-pitched squeal when he felt the head of his hit the back of the demon's throat. She began ing the very hardest that she could, and a second later, Naruto came as he spat out large chunks of sperm on her face. Shamsiel blushed, and used her to swipe his sperm, devouring the chunk of his into her. Phew, so damn delicious, this belongs to me. I wonder how much sperm I can extract from your body, she stated, ing it mul times. Kami Shamsiel, you're so good at giving head, Naruto proclaimed, patting his succubus lightly on the head, causing her to shiver softly. And I love satisfying your needs, she purred as she straddled him, pressing her soft perky up against his as she prodded her into his. Naruto's immediately responded to Shamsiel's horny, and the fact that he could taste his semen on her made him hard all over again. They remained locked in a peonate embrace for a few moments before Naruto grabbed at Shamsiel and pushed her down on the edge of the bathtub. Now it's my turn to please you. Naruto then went and ate up and down her neck, and then down to her stomach before eventually reaching her hot pulsing slit underwater. Naruto! She screamed, grabbing his wet hair. Oh yes! Shamsiel groaned, closing her eyes tightly as a smile slid over her face. He still needed to breathe, so he got back up to catch his breath, ing her every time he did that. He slid her in and out of her with an even greater force as she let his hands wander all over her soft curvy figure. Naruto, I think I'm gonna come soon if you keep that up, Shamsiel said as she started bucking her against her lovers. Shamsiel's words only made him eat her, and his stroking and caressing every inch of her, savoring her taste. Naruto loved gulping down her essence. It was his favorite thing to do. It was better than eating ramen. He even let out a few s as he practically devoured her slightly hairy, smelling it and gulping it down. Naruto, Naruto yes. Shamsiel screeched, Naruto screeched. Naruto was so good at giving her oral pleasure, it made her go nuts. After what seemed like an eternity, the shinobi ate her out with an intense speed. It caused Shamsiel's climax to spill her sweet exquisite s all over his as he drank up the succubus and ate her as if he were dying of thirst. Once he was sure he downed all of Shamsiel's s, he made her spread her legs and positioned his rock hard over her cursed. Naruto, please ravage my s, I want you to dominate and take over me permanently, she groaned out, ing her furiously. Naruto's eyes flashed, and he smirked evilly. He then hissed in heavily. Her soft but dangerous entrance was enough to kill almost every human man, but not Naruto's for some reason. His human molesting her with her permission was an amazing feeling, she shrieked in ecstasy. Oh Kami yes! Shamsiel could barely speak. She just loved letting Naruto's fill her tight woman. She loved giving herself to him. She loved just letting him and dump his sperm onto her. Naruto started to her even. Shamsiel started to take control. She then positioned him on the bathtub on the side and got on top of him, letting his enter her again. She loved the joys of bouncing up and down his. Shamsiel screamed out, "You're as amazing, having your way with a succubus like myself, caressing and touching me all over. You're such a bad boy. From now on you get to me until I don't know how to fly or walk again," she screamed, grabbing his hair. Naruto's hands traveled towards her, ing them. Shamsiel screamed in Euphoria. "NNNGHH, you like that Shamsiel, you like it when I do this." He then twisted her, and then let his latch onto them again, ing her. "Oh yeah" was all that she could say. "Do you want me to come I of you Shammy?" he stated. "Yes, spray my, give me your hot sperm. This body only belongs to you, I'm your property," she screamed. Shamsiel came seconds later, followed by Naruto, her entrance contracting with his. She ate into his as her latched onto his. After a several-minute cooldown, she began to speak softly. "Kami. My stomach, what a nice meal." Shamsiel smiled, feeling his sperm her stomach. Naruto floated towards her the tub. "Hope you like the food Shamsiel-chan." He chuckled. "Liked it. I loved it. This really drives me crazy you know." She then reached for his and began to grab it, caressing his member. "Haha, thanks," Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head and blushing. All of a sudden a white sigil appeared on the ground, poking its head out. Both Naruto and Shamsiel gasped. "Mom!" What the hell? She covered herself up, and Naruto did the same, out of embarrassment to see the arch-succubus queen. Sorry, I tried to call you guys, but it seems like you two were having a party here. She laughed, looking at both of them. What do you want? She hissed. Naruto looked at her, wincing. She didn't want to get on her bad side of her. I made dinner for you guys. It's just been a long time since I've seen you. I wanted to cook you a fresh meal. No thanks, we're good. Shamsiel pouted, turning her head away. Shamsiel, don't be such a spoiled brat. Just because we're succubus means you can't eat anything other than sperm. Eat with me. She rolled her eyes at her daughter's attitude. Naruto kind of understand why these two had a falling out. She sighed, fine, but no funny stuff. I wouldn't think of it. She raised her hands in urence. Naruto, I want to know more about you, so come eat dinner with us, any? She said happily, looking at him. She narrowed her eyes, admiring the young man's toned figure. I guess so, he said, shrugging his shoulders. Now get out. We need to change, Shamsiel commanded, pointing at the door. Fine, just hurry up. She closed the door. Shamsiel and Naruto looked at each other. He was already at by Farika, but know that Shamsiel was here. She was hoping that wouldn't have happened. There was no way that Naruto could survive a demon queen like her. Naruto sat beside Shamsiel as they arrived at what was a normal-looking dinner. Whoa, Naruto said. He saw a plate full of ramen chocked with tons of shrimp. What were you expecting? Mephisu asked, giggling at him. Worm skulls or something? Kind of, yeah, he lightly replied. Mephisu rolled her eyes. As I said before, we don't only have to drink semen from males, we eat other things. Mephisu smiled. But if you want. She then stood up. Her giggled a little bit in front of him, making Naruto hitch her breath. Mom, please stop, Shamsiel commanded. She knew that Naruto got hair triggered from an all succubus features, but she couldn't really do that much. Why did she even agree to stay again? All hush, Naruto's our visitor, an esteemed guest. Any man that can an array of succubus and still survive is honorable. The queen looked at her daughter, who had an embarrassed expression on her face. She's looked into the orb of all their acts with each other. So Naruto, what's it like in your world? I had no idea that my daughter left to go to your realm. I'm pretty sure you've seen so much stuff, right? She stated, looking over at him, crossing her hands together. Well, I'm a shinobi who has dreams of becoming Hokage. It's like a leader of village, and I love going on missions, and I can't wait to take Shamsiel with me on one. She can become a really good kunoichi. Thanks, Naruto, but just remember, I'm only doing this so I could use it as an excuse to get closer to you, Shamsiel quietly said, blushing. Her tail began to slither on his groin, tickling it, causing him to. Hey, what are you guys doing under there? Mephisu questioned, a smirk under her face, looking at her daughter. Nothing, Mom, just minds your business for once, Shamsiel grunted, rolling her eyes. Shamsiel, I'm not stupid. You were teasing his with your tail, weren't you? The queen said. Naruto looked down at the table, his face red as tomatoes. He then cleared his throat. He grabbed some food from the table, surprised that they had ramen in this realm, and began to eat it. Naruto just looked on while the two continued to bicker. Shamsiel just went on and on about how Naruto was for her only, and that no succubus would dare touch him. His sperm would feed only her, with Mephisu staring on in blissful ignorance, as Naruto continued to eat. Shamsiel noticed something and smiled. Oh, Naruto, there's something on your cheek. I think it's sauce. Here, let me get it. Shamsiel smiled softly. She then leaned towards him and ate his upper cheek. There, all gone, she stated, smiling at him. I should really be eating too, but I'm not really hungry since I had your special sauce earlier that filled me up, she giggled. Naruto, upon hearing this, choked on his ramen a little bit. Mephisu looked worried. Are you okay? Why, yeah, I'm fine. Naruto couldn't handle all the innuendos Shamsiel was throwing at him right in front of her queen succubus mom. Mephisu looked at both of them and had a plan. She smirked evilly. Here, let me grab you a cup of water. She then walked over to them, when all of a sudden she spilled the water, causing Shamsiel and Naruto to gasp. Interestingly enough, the water didn't touch him, it only spilled on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, how clumsy of me. The queen stated. Her hand then reached over to Naruto's lap. Her hand was rubbing the outer layer of his member. This caused Shamsiel to hiss in protest. Don't touch him, she growled. Oh, relax, will you? This is my realm after all, and you really can hog this human all to yourself. I raised you better than that. She giggled. She then pulled off Naruto's pants, revealing his hardened and pointing at Mephisu. The queen gave Naruto a wink. She took his and placed it in her. She closed her eyes and ate as if she were a lollop. After ing for a while, she pulled away, leaving a trail of spit behind. Damn, this aroma is great. Humans really are amazing, she whispered. She then stood up and snapped her This caused the trio's clothes to disappear. The queen then grabbed her daughter, who had a shocked expression, and held her from behind. She stretched her folds, revealing how wet they were. Naruto, if you want me to pleasure you, you better pleasure my stubborn daughter first. She may act mischievous, but she really wants to be ed on her own terms. Mephisa smiled, ing her daughter's ear and nibbling on it. Naruto stood up, but stood still, his pointing directly at Shamsiel. She bit her. Please, just have your way with me, she stated, giving in to her temptations right in front of her mother. Her tail then reached to grab his, wrapping around him and pulling it closer to her. Cursed, he was at a loss for words. This was a turn-on to be in this new realm and probably have a huge harem of horny succubus to him. But he was worried that he might piss off at least one, and they might bite his off. Shamsiel would never allow that to happen, right? Naruto then leaned towards Shamsiel as his positioned her entrance. She smiled gently and blushed. A heartfelt smile was plastered on his face. He then ed on nose and cheek gently. Please give me more, Shamsiel whimpered. Naruto then proceeded to her pianely, grabbing onto her and rubbing them softly. Their s would always roll off each other. Shamsiel, you guys are so cute together, you're obsessed with his. Mephisa smiled. Shut you up. Shamsiel frowned a bit but kept her composure. She saw her mother maging her. Naruto then placed her Shamsiel, eliciting s from her. His pre-semen was oozing from his and into Shamsiel's folds. So deep. She ed, gripping Naruto's back, making a mess of him. Her tail wrapped itself around his shaft. She felt it slide past her clit. Shamsiel groaned as she felt herself, her tail unwinding itself around Naruto and sliding against him gently. Fuck. She ed ly. She then looked at her mother and blushed. Her mother then chuckled. You're so adorable. Mephisa then patted her daughter's head lovingly. Shamsiel looked at her mother and pouted. She then cupped Naruto's and ed it. I hope you're not done yet, human. The queen blushed and stared at Naruto. She then snapped her and they three were on her elegant bed. Shamsiel was on the other side of the large bed trying to regain her energy after being used. Mephisa then placed two in her and began to mate her. You have to lay me, you know. Her tail then wrapped on his, releasing a pink glow that made it stand up. Naruto chuckled evilly at this. She then grabbed both of her horns and positioned her face in front of his. You're very forward with your desires, the queen cooed. She then placed her on Naruto's and began to slowly. Naruto then started to make weird sounds. Mephisa smiled. She could tell by now that he enjoyed it, so she kept on ing and biting him hard. Soon the whole room was full of ing and pleasuring noises. That feels so good. Oh God. Don't stop. Naruto shouted, holding onto Mephisa's hair tightly, causing the queen to grin evilly at him with his member in her. After a while of ing like this, pushing her head towards his inward and outward, the queen made Naruto as he emptied his sperm directly into her. She gulped it all down like an expert. Wow, your sperm is delicious. Mephisa smiled. Naruto blushed slightly before taking his out of her. He then got off her and laid beside his queen, letting out a deep breath. His eyes closed, enjoying the feeling of having ed both of them. Naruto looked at the mother-daughter duo that he made love to. How did I ever manage to get myself into this situation? These succubi really wanted me to death. Naruto thought, his heart hitched. He loved this situation. He had access to a harem now. He turned to Shamsiel. She looked at him and blinked. Why don't you attend to me again? Shamsiel stated. She held her together and smiled piantly. Naruto nodded slowly and began to her, and the succubus ed and squealed. While Shamsiel was busy ing Naruto's neck, she looked at his mom. She smiled happily as she rubbed her, feeling satisfied and happy, as Naruto was also in the same state. Soon Naruto stopped ing her and looked at his mother. The queen blushed and smiled. Don't mind me, I'm just happy Shamsiel is back. I now realize that I shouldn't command her to have a harem. I just want her to be happy. Nay. Shamsiel nodded eagerly, agreeing with her mom. Please forgive me, Mephisa whispered, ing her daughter on her. Shamsiel embraced her back and did the same. I'm not angry at you, we just had a fallout, that's all. I just needed to get away from this realm and clear my head. And then I saw Naruto, and I couldn't go back, Shamsiel said. Looking at the blonde-haired shinobi, he blushed slightly. I'm really happy she came into my life. Shamsiel is so awesome. Her body, her voice, just everything. Naruto ecstatically said, smiling widely at Shamsiel. The pink-haired succubus blushed and tackled him softly so she was on top. She planted plenty of yes on him. Mephisa laughed. So, you two are technically married, right, due to Shamsiel's marking? She pointed. Yep, Shamsiel said. Naruto raised his eyebrow. Marriage, you never told me that when you performed the ritual on me, Shamsiel-chan. Sorry Naruto, I never really told you since I got caught up in this huge of yours, Shamsiel whispered. She then grabbed a hold of it, and ed the head, eliciting S from the blonde shinobi. You know, this is the first time marriage between a succubus and a human ever occurred. Most men in your position would have died upon UL contact with a succubus. However, you seem to be different. There's something special about you and your sperm. Mephisto smiled. Yeah, you seem to be so different than most humans. But you are very kind towards me, so, please. As stated before, you can have with me however you want. I'm technically a slave to your now. Shamsiel giggled. Why yeah, we should probably get going. Naruto stood up. We have to go back to Konoha. Bachan is probably wondering where I am. Where is he? Where is he? A voice was roaring behind the door. It was none other than Furika-chan. She busted open the door which led to the queen's room. Her angry mood changed right after the moment she saw the trio in her mother's bed. Shamsiel and Mephisto's faces were matted in Naruto's sperm. Oh hey, Furika, did you enjoy the ing I gave you? Naruto stated, giving her a wide grin. Shamsiel giggled. Normally she would pounce on Furika-sama and beat her to a pulp with her fists and tail. But she began to have other thoughts on revenge. Why you violated me? A human like yourself shouldn't be able to do that to an elite succubus like me, she growled. Well, you did kidnap him. Naruto is just that special and could have his way with any of us, Mephisto exclaimed, her rubbing the back of his shoulders. Humph, even if he could take any of us down, he wouldn't have wanted you. He would have preferred me. Furika spat at them. You're just jealous because I found him first. Naruto is still mine, and we're technically married. I'm surprised his sperm didn't make you melt or something. Shamsiel stuck his out. Furika blushed. Looking at them, it's not fair. Hey Naruto, why don't we teach her a lesson and get our revenge? Shamsiel smiled deviously, her eyes turning red. He looked at Shamsiel, whose tail was wrapped around him and emitted a red glow. He was turned on to the fullest. Mephisto nodded and agreed with her daughter. I agree, Shamsiel. We're going to you until you can't walk. Mephisto smiled at her daughter. This was something that wasn't natural in the human realm, but incest is completely normal. A succubus mother can have her way with an incubus son if she pleases, and vice versa. Furika gasped as Naruto flashed behind her. His arms wrapped behind her and cupped her, squeezing them tightly. She screamed in ecstasy, saliva trailing in her. Naruto at the back of her neck, nibbling on it. Damn, you taste so good, Furika. I also have a surprise. I didn't know I didn't do this before. He then conjured several clones. Furika, Shamsiel, and even Mephisto screamed in shock. What? How? 3 Narutos? Shamsiel's was wide open. Kagebushin no Jutsu main, Naruto said. It's really effective for decoys, and also having. Naruto too nodded. Yeah, I'm surprised boss didn't mention this before, Naruto 3 stated. Their S were so large, impressive S that were almost dripping with pre. The trio of succubis began to water, and Shamsiel's blushed furiously. She was ready to get gang-banged by her man or mans in this case. Furika just stood as main Naruto carried her to the queen's large bed, laying her down gently. The queen was smirking wickedly. She bit her. Now let's begin. This will be fun. Naruto grabbed Furika and pushed her to the bed, his clones surrounding her as Shamsiel and Mephisto just watched. Boss, can we really have our way with her? The first Naruto said. She's all yours, the original Naruto giggled. The clone trio made a stupid smirk as they pounced on Furika. She looked at the 3 clones of Naruto surrounding her with their S pointed and aiming directly at her. Well, 2 of them were on her side and the first clone was positioned at her entrance. The elite succubus looked even more turned on. She loved being gang-banged and kind of fantasized about being gang-banged by this human that she just kidnapped. The 2 Narutos on the side were maging her furiously while ing them, while the first one slid his big her S and tight demoness hole. Furika screamed out as they started to use her body. One of the clones on her side started rubbing his pre on her hair. Mephisto giggled. She's really bitchy at first, but once you give her some S, she's really submissive. Mephisto blushed, loving what her daughter was going through. Furika, please use your hands. The second Naruto clone ed, he then grabbed her hands and placed it on his. Furika, you know that's not enough, you should know better. Mephisto glared at her. She blushed and then began to stroke the clones furiously. Much better, succubus must please men in order to extract their semen, she declared. The first Naruto was just ing her non-stop, making her into a screaming gape hole. Nearly 10 minutes into it, and she had lost track of the number of times she had. Naruto's first clone sped up his face as she grabbed her tail, while the clones on the side were taking her turns letting her their S. Shamsiel, who had leaned up against Naruto enjoying her sister like this, smiled. Looks like your clone has the same tail fetish as you, interesting. Shamsiel giggled. The original Naruto just leaned in and ed her girlfriend on the Are you hungry, Shamsiel? You know I'll always give you what you want, Naruto whispered. He then stood on his knees, poking his heart in on her. Shamsiel's eyes lowered, and leaned in to give it a few pecks on the head. You really know how to push my buttons, don't you? Shamsiel smirked evilly, letting his rub all over her face. You know me too well, Naruto whispered. Oh, they both flinched. Mom, I forgot you were here, she growled while blushing. Sorry, I just find this really adorable. My daughter falling in love with a human, and not just any human, a human that can survive her ing. You're amazing, Naruto. Hehehe. I do what I can. He showed his trademark grin while rubbing the back of his head. Why don't you give me a clone that I can also play with? It's not fair that you're just leaving me hanging. Naruto obeyed and summoned his clones. They were just like him. Mephisu was ecstatic. You three come. Else you're gonna miss the of a lifetime, she blushed, winking at them. The clones all nodded their heads dumbfoundedly. She then pulled them by their s and went to another empty room. With a single snap their s were lengthened, and the trio of clones smiled into a shit-eating grin. Farika was still being ed by the original clones. You shouldn't have kidnapped our boss and almost killed him. You should have known this was probably going to happen, Naruto's first clone said. Tried to your pride, or should I say our semen? Both of the Narutos on the side said. Within a few minutes, their s swelled up astronomically. Her is so ing good. Her, and is going to make me melt. Her silky red hair is clunky with my semen. The Narutos then grunted. A wave of semen spurted onto, and into Farika-sama's hair, face, nose, and eyes, her throat. And Farika loved every moment of it, her pupils shaped into hearts. Never had someone like this had such power over her. Naruto was truly a machine. I hope you learned your lesson about kidnapping my Naruto. Shamsiel stuck her out. His clones all collapsed around Farika, exhausted and loose about what transpired. Farika's face and body were caked in their semen. She ed her and ed. I love see, she smiled stupidly. Shamsiel giggled and went to her, patting her head. It's good to have vengeance, isn't it? Farika groaned and ignored her. She turned around and wanted to sleep. Shamsiel turned around to Naruto. Let's go to my room again. I want you all to myself. I want you to make sure I scream in pleasure. Shamsiel flashed her fangs, looking at his, which made her cursed comb tingle. Naruto chuckled evilly and flashed right behind her, grabbing the succubus bridal style before going into her room. As they did that, they heard Mephisto ing the life out of his clones. When they got to her room, Naruto placed her softly on the bed like a princess. He was on top of her, planting so many yes on her face, and then ing her like it was his dinner, his rubbing furiously on her stomach. Shamsiel ed erotically at this. Naruto ed her and groped her. He was all over her. I love you. Naruto gasped between yes. Love you too. Before Naruto spread her legs and inserted his, she wanted to try something. Wait, I have an idea, she smiled. What is it? I want to ravage your s. Naruto whined ing her thighs. I know, just wait. She then stood up, and looked at him, putting her hands on her. Naruto looked confused. She smiled. She then snapped her and the room was pitch black. After a few moments, the room lit up again. What Noro saw made him smile, and his twitched. Shamsiel was wearing a black lingerie set, a lacy black bra that didn't even do a good job at shielding her, and a thong that was not even covering her. You like what you see of me. Succubus can have the ability to change into something really skimpy in moments. So, what do you think? Shamsiel's hands clasped on each other while her wings fluttered. Naruto stood up, walked towards her, smiled and clasped her with her hands, and leaned into her. So beautiful. That was all that he could say. His were red just like hers. I just want to take care of you and have my meal. I know I'm distracting you from being a ninja, and I'm sorry, please forgive me. All of a sudden, her pleas for forgiveness were silenced by his on the. You're not, you actually saved me from going insane or something, Naruto stated. Don't get mad at yourself, you're too cute for that. He whispered, nibbling on her neck. Oh, Naruto, her tail wrapped around them as their foreheads pressed together. Let's feed you, he whispered. He sat down on the bed, his hitched, come sit on my lap, Shamsiel, he gestured, his hands opening up to her. Shamsiel nodded and slid her thong down. His breath took in a sharp inhale, and his lungs stopped working. Her perky large were such a turn-on for him ever since he saw them in the forest. She flew towards him and grabbed the base of his. Then positioning herself to engulf his, she slid down. They both ed in pleasure, their bodies moved in rhythm, and with each and push against the other body increased. The pure euphoria and bliss of the action made Shamsiel scream in delight. Naruto then made her go down on him. He was on top, and he was ing her everywhere. The sensation of demonesses and being in this realm was overarching. Their senses were completely overtaken by the sounds, feelings, and movements of their body. He moved down to her rapidly beating pulse point and ed her before ing again, his was addicted to her folds. He was ing her earlobes. Wow, Naruto, you're so amazing. Looks like you're exorcising the demon. She winked, and stuck her out. He giggled and ate her. He was ing very quickly as they were looking at each other's eyes. Naruto loved staring at her unique demon eyes. You could tell they were hungry for his semen. With one final, Shamsiel's walls clamped down on him hard. It was like a vice, and it was something Naruto had never experienced before. His body jerked slightly as his climax finally exploded from him, and his semen was beginning at her. Both their bodies were jerking in their own right. Naruto felt for a moment that he was about to die, remembering that Shamsiel was a succubus, but nothing happened to him. Their muscles just gave out as Naruto collapsed just a few centimeters from her face. I love you, Shamsiel, we're technically married. Why yeah, I know, she said, panting. Her whole body was a mess, and his semen was floating her. Shamsiel leaned towards him and planted a thanks for the meal. My husband. Husband. That had a nice ring to it. Smiling sweetly at her, Naruto leaned in and ate her again before using his hand to cup her cheek. Husband and wife, pretty amazing art, he said, patting her head and then poking her horns. She blushed and nodded. Although it was pretty hasty, he was glad that Shamsiel marked him. He would technically still be a virgin loser if it wasn't for her. We should probably get going now, Naruto stated. He stood up and picked his clothes off the floor. The succubus also stood up and stretched her body. Her legs were pretty wobbly after all the intercourse that they'd been having. You're right, I want to go back to Konoha. There's just so much to do there, she said. She snapped her and her whole voluptuous body was covered again by the ninja outfit that Tsunade gave her. We should probably tell Mephisu that we're leaving. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I think she's still getting ed by your clones. And Farika is still recovering again. She's really obsessed with me. He laughed nervously. Shamsiel growled. She still had bitter feelings toward her sister but loved the revenge that she witnessed earlier. Sorry, I forgot how much she's indifferent to you. Let's hurry up and go, Naruto ordered. They both left her room and went to Mephisu's room. When they opened the door, what they saw wasn't surprising. Mephisu's skin was covered by Naruto's clone sperm, from her face to her stomach, with a stupid slutty smile. Whoa, look what your clones did to her. Shamsiel smiled. She floated towards her mom and swiped semen off her mom's skin, and took some in her. Your sperm is so lively, Naruto-sama, or clones in this context. She smiled, ing it professionally. Thanks, I guess. Even though Naruto didn't even Mephisu, his clones did. But he was so concentrated on Shamsiel's body and needs that he didn't even care. Mama, Shamsiel stated, caressing her to get her attention, we're leaving. We're going back to Konoha. The queen immediately stood up. Hey, you guys are leaving. Why? Why can't he stay here? He can feed 1,000,000 of us with his sperm. It's so potent. And his clones were so amazing. No other species can do that here. Shamsiel rolled her eyes. Finders keepers, he's mine and that's final. Shamsiel said in a demanding voice. You can't leave. A voice was behind them. They turned around. Farika. Shamsiel quietly said she saw her sister, still, and her body caked in Naruto's sperm. I don't want anyone else but him. The succubus stated. She walked towards him and held his arm, her pressing down on him, causing Naruto to wince, blushing to see a demon hold him like this. Please stay here with me. It's obvious that you don't even want to become a Hokage, is it? Just stay here with us. I'll do anything for you. Farika's purple eyes stared into his blue eyes. Shamsiel saw this and immediately frowned. Her stomps grew. He's mine, Farika. Go an orc or something. You can't just leave like that. Finders keepers, and besides he's married to me. Shamsiel shouted. She then pulled down his pants and showed them the mark, which was an exact replica of the seal on Shamsiel's left face cheek. Mephisu laughed. Alright, I think that settles it. Farika, you stated multiple times that you wanted to succeed me as queen. You can't follow them to Konoha. You must stay here and attend to your harem. Farika growled, but nodded and bowed her head. She knew she couldn't do anything to override the queen's decision. Sigh, fine. She stared at them, Shamsiel clinging on to Naruto while floating. She knew she couldn't deny that her sister was truly in love with him, and it's no wonder why. At 6 feet 1 inch, he was muscular, had a well-defined six-pack, amazing biceps, and that hair, blue eyes that made Shamsiel's tingle. Hers too. You two belong together. Just promise me one thing, Shammy. She walked towards her and held her hands. She planted her on Shamsiel's own, ing her own sister. Naruto looked at them, his twitching seeing these two sisters. I guess this is normal for succubus in this realm. Farika. Shamsiel ed into the meanwhile. Mephisu gushed at the sight of her two daughters embracing and ing each other in a loving manner. Naruto coughed awkwardly. Shamsiel and Farika both stared at him. Say, sis, why don't I give you a treat of his sperm before we go? Shamsiel suggested. That would be wonderful. Promise you guys will come back. I can't get enough of him. Me too. MisoSparkz floated behind them, their eyes turned red staring at Naruto who was chuckling nervously. Oh. Line break. Naruto was blindfolded and tied to a chair with his legs spread out, and his was pointing toward the trio who just gazed at him. Am I ever going to get out of this realm? He thought. He figured he just played along due to Farika and Shamsiel making amends. You're so lucky to have a man like this, Shamsiel. Farika pouted, staring at his glistening era. I know. I'm so glad he's my husband. Maybe someday he can be the king of demons in our realm. His sperm is so amazing. Watch. No magic, he gets turned on by my near touches. Shamsiel smiled. Naruto overheard this. His was twitching while leaking pre-dash. Shamsiel, just like in the ritual, reached her hands to touch his. Within a few moments, Naruto's face turned red, and spurted out ropes of semen on their faces. Amazing. Farika said. Kami. This is incredible. MisoSparkz stated, her drenched with semen. Farika did the same. I know. Shamsiel giggled. Farika then leaned towards his and began to mage her large with it. Naruto didn't know who was touching him at that moment but didn't even care. He was having the time of his life, saliva coming down from his. Naruto groaned as the sisters worked together on the tit job, his head several times. This is probably the reason Farika wanted this in the first place. He thought of. All of a sudden his blindfold was taken off. He looked up and saw the succubus queen smiling at him. Here, take this. She leaned towards him and pushed her to his. Taste me, she quietly said. Naruto's eyes lowered and he did what he was told, her, and wrapping his around her areolas. Her body tensed up and she let out a long. She grabbed a handful of his hair and tugged harshly, making Naruto release her with ease. She gasped, what a greedy human. She stated, Naruto honey, we love helping you enjoy yourself. Shamsiel sounded filthy as hell, talking to her husband like this. Relive the stress if you have any. We want to thank you for amending the bridge between us. Farika stated, their bodies sent shivers down his spine, though they could have come from the double tit job he was reciting instead. Ah, Kami! All you guys have been doing is pleasuring me with your demonic white bodies. It's so awesome, he shouted, MisoSparkz. After he said that, he sifted his hands to her warm, soft, silky blonde hair. The smell of perfume and invading his nose, and the sight of his mother-in-law and sister-in-law along with Shamsiel worshipping his body was simply intoxicating. He couldn't stop. He wanted to all of them till he was satisfied and their stomachs looked like 9-month pregnant women. It's Naruto-kun's fault for having such a large. Farika complimented, giving his member a quick peck with her. Her eyes turned red. She adjusted her technique to bounce one huge tit at a time, up and down the sides of his. Shamsiel doing the same. For Shamsiel's let go of his member. Farika's also took him in and bobbed up and down enjoying his man. Ah! Naruto ed as Farika's was working its magic on him. Kami, look at my daughters working together. Naruto was in a daze. He's going wild, isn't he? This refuses to go down. The two sisters were rubbing his furiously. All of a sudden Naruto was convulsing as his spat out waves and waves of semen on the sisters' faces. Wow, still so much, you're the best. Farika sighed in contentment. Naruto smiled as they both had their semen-covered hand. MisoSparkz was also his cheek while grinning at him. I've never seen them unite like this before. MisoSparkz stated as he had Naruto's. Thank you for letting them play with you. Ha ha ha, no problem. Naruto clenched his teeth in a smile. Line break. Take care, Shamsiel. Please invite me to any of your Konoha adventures. Or she stared at Naruto. Any more risque things you guys will do? I'm always going to be here. Shamsiel walked towards her sister and at her softly. She took in the. Take care, Farika. I'll always come back to my realm. But I want to stay close to Naruto. I want to take care of my husband's needs. PSH. Or maybe him dry till there's no semen left. Shamsiel rolled her eyes. He won't die. He's already proven himself. We've had plenty of times just right now and he hasn't died yet. Naruto turned to her with a mortified expression. She giggled and aged him a quick peck on the cheek. Just kidding. It's a shame you two can't stay for a little while. But Naruto has responsibilities just like any other ninja to become Hokage, I suppose. I hope you're not going to distract him, Shamsiel. Hey, I'm really cute. It's going to happen sometimes. She shrugged her shoulders, and Naruto laughed. Okay guys, we should really go now. I have no idea what time tea is in my realm. Well, you should probably get going, nay. Just come back for us so we can take care of that once again. She winked at Naruto, who blushed and looked down. Alight, bye mom, bye Farika. Shamsiel said. Goodbye. They both waved, as the sigil transported them to Naruto's room. Line break. It was midnight in Konoha, There was a new moon that night, so the entire town seemed to be lost in darkness. Perfect conditions for Shamsiel as they finished transporting into Naruto's room. They both looked around. Ugh, this is pretty cliché. Come on Naruto, let's go out for a night on the town. Farika grabbed Naruto's arm and tugged him out of the room. Wait, he halted himself as Farika pulled him outside and closed the door. Where do you want to go? The mountain with the faces, she replied. Oh, Naruto said unsure. He smiled and let her yank his arm. She most likely meant the Hokage monument. The dark sky breeze was perfect, and Naruto and Shamsiel sat atop of the Hokage monument. You can see the whole village up here, so cool. Shamsiel's eyes lit up. She felt comfortable doing this, but she let her wings and tail appear from out of her body, causing him to freak out. Don't worry, no one's here, Shamsiel said, looking around. He did the same thing and let his guard down after seeing no one near them. So what mission are we going to do tomorrow? Kill an evil spirit, save a citizen, destroy something? Shamsiel asked annoyingly. I don't know yet. Tomorrow we just have to ask Tsunade. Since you're new, I think we're going to get C-rank missions. Oh, Shamsiel said a little befuddled. And since we were kind of bunking off, I think it's settled. Naruto sighed. He knew that all that they were doing in her realm was probably a long time. There was no way he could come up with an excuse for that. She could see him worry, so she wanted to change the topic quickly. She hated when he was sad in any way. So, now that we're technically married. She twiddled her thumbs. I want to know more about you. Well, that would make sense since you told me about yourself and I already was in your realm. He chuckled, but after that, he stared deeply in her eyes. I'm a Jinchuriki. I hold the Kyuubi no Yoko. I have it sealed in my body. Everyone has treated me like an outsider. I don't know why. I'm a human like everyone else. When I was in the academy, Sakura and Ino would always gravitate towards Sasuke because he was the cool one. And I was just a freak to them. Naruto could feel his tears swell up. He felt a single set of tears fall. He felt a single tail touch his. Sure, Naruto, I'm really sorry about what you went through. People are just meanies. And you're right, the future isn't certain. Neither of us really knows for sure what will happen. The succubus smiled. But I'm really happy that I'm spending my life with you, Naruto. You're really amazing. I know I want to be with you, my family, and I love you so much, nay. Rubbing her nose against his, Naruto smiled softly at her words. She was right. Why mope around when his life changed? He felt protected with her at his side. Shamsiel holding onto her hands and locking his eyes with his. He leaned in and ed her. Even though he was really perverted with her, and wanted to spray her with semen every time he locked eyes with her, he still loved wholesome moments like this. Shamsiel was embracing him with a hug, while her tail was wrapped around them, making a heart shape. And that's exactly what it was. Their hearts both fluttered towards each other, and she snuggled closer to him as they embraced the night. The sun was beginning to rise over the village of Konoha. After their sweet night together, Naruto and Shamsiel both agreed to go their separate ways to train in the morning. Shamsiel went along with Anko and Sakura, while Naruto was going to train with Rock Lee, who he considered a very good friend despite not talking to him that much. Two shinobi running alongside each other were running throughout the village. Surely, you're not tired, Naruto. We only did 50 laps. Rock Lee smiled while giving him a thumbs up. Naruto sighed and rolled his eyes. I'm not tired, my mind is just thinking about some things. He said, maybe it wasn't wise to leave Shamsiel alone with Sakura, but he knew that she wouldn't do anything to the elite succubus, and she could hold her own. Speaking of which, sorry Lee, I got to go. I need to see a friend. Naruto stated, I need to go get her for a mission, it's her first one. He ran off. Rock Lee looked puzzled but shrugged it off. How promising, I'm glad he's being really courteous. He then went on the ground and did 500 push-ups. Line break. Come on Sakura, I know you can do better. Shamsiel stuck her out. They were in a training field practicing their ninjutsu skills. Sakura growled at her teammate, throwing a kunai at her. She dodged it perfectly with immense speed. The hidden succubus snickered. That was even worse. Sakura swelled red and she was about to throw a star at her, that is until. Oi, hey guys, sorry I'm late. Rock Lee got me quite busy with laps. The trio turned around, Anko smiled, and Shamsiel blushed. Sakura looked with indifference as she saw Naruto approach them. Naruto! Shamsiel screamed. She ran towards her husband, Naruto bracing for a pounce, and it came hard. She knocked him down and sat above him, ing him softly. I miss you so much. It's have only been a few hours, Naruto chuckled. Shamsiel shook her head. Too much time for me to separate from you. She ed, and Naruto blushed. Her butt was on his groin area, causing his to poke through his pants and tickle her. She knew what was happening and smirked. Shamsiel, what are you doing? Sakura screamed. She couldn't believe what they were doing in front of her. Anko just smiled. She knew that they were together due to the magic spell she placed on her, causing her to accept it without any qualms after their night together. Naruto forgot that the two were behind them and got off of Shamsiel and stood up. You! He stuttered. His face was bright red like an apple, but it was probably from all the exercise. Anko laughed it off, while Sakura wasn't too impressed by this. Wow, Naruto, you really were desperate enough to be with someone who is damaged goods. Shamsiel's ear flared at the insult. Naruto glared at Sakura. Sakura, don't be such a bitch. She's really amazing and she's helped me learn so much about myself. It's not like you cared about me. You always insulted me, and it's none of your business how I live my life. You're lucky I haven't beaten you into a pulp all these years you've treated me like crap. Shamsiel's heart melted at his kind words. She giggled and at him. A smile suddenly raised on Naruto's face. And he feeds me. Shamsiel puffed out her proudly. The duo looked at her confused. Naruto nudged Shamsiel. He feeds me. Lots of love and affection. Why don't you go begging Sasuke or something? I bet his tiny will even satisfy you. Shamsiel giggled, blushing. She knew that she was pushing it, but who cares? She insulted her Naruto, and she wasn't going to take that sitting down. Sakura's left eye began to twitch rapidly. She had nothing to say, she just grunted and left the training grounds by herself. Wow guys, you really ticked her off with your public affection for each other. I've never seen her like that before. Should I talk to her? All of us need to go on the mission together. Go right ahead. It will be fun seeing her facial reactions to our yes. Shamsiel giggled innocently as she moved her hands around Naruto's stomach into a backward hugging position. Anko sighed. Get ready, we're about to do a mission in the next few hours. Hi. They both said. Line break. They both arrived back at his home. Thanks for defending me. For a second I thought I was going to rip her throat out. She laughed. Naruto rolled his eyes and smiled. You're welcome. I just don't understand why she hates me. I don't know what I did to her that made her have so much animosity towards me. Naruto groaned. Oh come on Naruto-kun, you're really strong and so cute. I'm really hungry, so just focus on me. He then looked at her, as she snapped her, making her gear disappear from her body. Her yellow horns came back and the red tail that Naruto just adored. She then pointed her at him, as his clothes disappeared. Naruto, please give me lots of semen. We're going on a strange adventure for the first time, so I need lots of energy. You deserve an award for defending me so honorably, nah? Naruto smiled and grabbed Shamsiel's bridal style as they went to the shower. His blue eyes clashed with her demonic ember eyes. I'll make sure I'll satisfy all your needs. Naruto's pressed up against hers. Their eyes swirled and rolled up against each other, with Shamsiel enjoying his taste. Naruto sat down the shower on a small chair. Shamsiel stood in front of him completely. So what do you want me to do, my husband? Shamsiel looked at him seductively. Her were inches from his. She knew the answer but wanted to get his approval. You're on my. Now Naruto said with a low growl, his growing inch by inch. Shamsiel nodded obediently. Come here cutie, I want to satisfy you so much. She then wrapped her around his, holding it in with his hands as she started sliding them up and down his length. Does that feel good Naruto-kun, having my demonic rub you like this? It's impossible to feel this good with any other woman besides a succubus. Shamsiel kept shaking her. Naruto grabbed her by the horns as her tails tickled his ball sack. She was ing as her were still ing his s. That's really good. I love having your warm semen spurt on my face. You're so good Naruto-kun. You're is so good. Such a strong smell and an amazing life cycle. She ed. Naruto ed and her kept sliding up and down on him. He then got up, grabbed her by the and pushed his her. Oh, so forceful with your succubus wife. You better be careful, or you might die me. Shamsiel was silenced by his yes. He ed her and stroked her tail, causing her to shout uncontrollably. She still couldn't understand what made the Uzumaki so strong. Most men would just wither within a few seconds of her touching them. But Naruto s her into an icy mess and makes her s feel all loose. Impossible for a succubus to endure, as they are as tight as virgins at every intercourse. Naruto's shaft kept slamming her cunt, punching through her cervix and into her. The succubi of Sanctum Semicus's eyes rolled up as she came instantly from his action. She wrapped her arms around his neck and ed him hard. Naruto squeezed her hard as her were plumped and almost ready to burst. She quivered from the force of her. Ah! Shamsiel screamed. All of a sudden semen was pumped into her, and she released his. Naruto then crouched down where she was laying and spurted semen on her face, nose, eyes, and... She giggled and ed away the semen. Naruto's grin was threatening to split his face. This is true happiness. Giving his big-head succubus wife his essence and being adored for it. Thank you Naruto for the meal. I have lots of energy now, she softly said with a stupid ahigo face with loads of semen on top of her body. Naruto blushed as her tail was rubbing his. Line break. After Tsunade wanted to give them a D-rank mission to walk an elderly to his house nearby, Shamsiel begged Tsunade to give them a higher rank mission. She gave up a fed-up nod and commanded that the group, now consisting of Sakura again after Anko convinced her to come with them, now go to the Sand Village to meet Gaara to discuss a defense negotiation on behalf of Tsunade. However, it's been rumored that there are bandits on the path they were going on. Oh please, we can take them on, right Naruto? She smiled at him. He patted her on the head, indicating that she keep quiet as the fifth Hokage was speaking. Even the highest shinobi can get stressed, Shamsiel. Tsunade quipped up since she was the newest member. Don't worry, we'll be alright, Shamsiel said confidently with a smirk, trying to pump up her ego. Sakura rolled her eyes. She left the room. Where are you going? Anko asked, seeing her leave. Sakura didn't turn around. Going to Suna. Some of us want to do our jobs. Her voice had venom in it, obviously directed at Naruto. Try not to ruin the experience with your mood. Naruto glared at her from behind. She made a lowly growl and left. With the following behind her. After a day's worth of travel, the four set up camp, Anko sleeping alone, Sakura as well, while Shamsiel and Naruto obviously shared a tent to themselves. The four sat around a campfire, discussing battle tactics and strategies. What exactly are we expecting on this mission, Naruto? Big scary monsters? Shamsiel asked. The irony was not lost as she was a demon from another realm. Naruto leaned against the log as he stared into the fire, with Shamsiel snuggling into his lap. Tsunade just said it was a defense negotiation. Weird. Because the fifth would do this by herself. Well, I did kind of annoy her into giving us this mission. She giggled, and her eyes then turned red for a few seconds. Naruto saw this, but Anko and Sakura didn't. Did she use mind control? She was a succubus after all, whose purpose is to dominate their prey. Before he could question it, Shamsiel sighed in contentment and edged Naruto on the cheek. Anko stood up. Alright you guys, I have to be the last watch, so you guys could go to bed. Good night you guys. Good night Anko-sensei. They all stated. After 2 hours, the campfire was extinguished and Naruto and Shamsiel were the tent. They had to be really quiet as to not cause any noise. Anko was outside watching the surroundings, and Shamsiel peeked out of the tent and saw that she was a little far. Shamsiel could hear that Sakura was sleeping. All clear. Shamsiel grinned, making a thumbs up. Let me guess, you're still hungry again, Naruto stated with dimly lit eyes. Oh, you don't want me to. She said a little sad that she won't jump him of the tent. And no. It's not like that. I just don't want to wake her up. I know you could mind control them. But he stated, putting his hands behind his head. Naruto, Shamsiel whispered, snapping her. She was completely again, with her horns and tail sprouting out of her body. You're putting on the mask again. Just enjoy me. She then wrapped her hand around the back of his head and moved him closer to her, allowing him to on them softly. And she addition Naruto then took off his clothes and tackled her on the ground. You've been pleasing me. It's time to return the favor for once, he smiled, opening her folds. She smiled. Kami, you're the best Naruto, you just know everything about my buttons. She grinned evilly. Line break. Over at Sakura's tent, the background was eerily quiet, but that was until she was awoken by the sound of Shamsiel ing. She cracked open her groggy eyes and rubbed her ears. Her heart dropped to her feet. Shamsiel was ing, and it appeared like she and Naruto were getting into it for a little midnight fun. Shamsiel forgot to soundproof the tent, and it felt to her that Shamsiel was going to be Naruto's reproductive machine to give him babies. Half demonic babies, but she didn't know. All she knew is that they were having, in between a mission that they were doing. You've got to be ing kidding me? Sakura grumbled. She rolled over and tried to ignore the sound, trying to cover herself with the pillows. However, Shamsiel ed her and her as she was hearing thumping sounds. Little to Sakura know that Naruto was grabbing her wings and ing them. Her tail was tickling his ball sacks, and the ing and his grunts wouldn't stop, torturing Sakura. She sighed, having to listen to the couple go at it. His duality of an Uzumaki is what she needed to stay alive. She couldn't live without it. Sakura, you're up. Anko's voice called out. Sakura got up and quickly put down her tent, knowing that he would be up for the remainder of the day. She nodded to Anko. I'm sorry you have to hear them. Try not to let it bother you so much, any? Anko quietly said, putting on an arm on their shoulders. I'll try, she said softly. Maybe this was punishment for ignoring him all these times. Come to think of it, did Sasuke even want to be with her? She felt like she's gone through hell these past seconds with all these thoughts going through her mind. Line break. As Shamsiel, you're is touching me, Naruto whispered. Then come on to my face. You love my body so much, exercise me, she giggled quietly. He grabbed onto her horns and released his semen on her face, and in her. Shamsiel happily gulped his essence down. Yummy, your semen is truly amazing, there's so much of it on my face. She smiled weakly, taking a swipe off her face and putting it in her. I try my best. Naruto laughed softly. Her forehead, her tail began to wag in bliss, blushing at the head pats. He made a sly grin and patted her head, groped her, and ed her on the. He was loving how his life was turning. He couldn't wait to begin the mission with her tomorrow. He just hoped that Shamsiel wouldn't cause him too much stress. The morning after Naruto and Shamsiel's activities were awkward, while not much sleep was obtained between the both of them, and that Shamsiel forgot to put a sound barrier during their wild night together. The day started off on a high note, with Shamsiel offering to cook the gang breakfast, the two of them eating together like a normal couple. It was heartwarming. Sakura couldn't help but roll her eyes. So what? So he hooked up with a bitch that no one had any idea where she came from. Open up, Naruto. Shamsiel blushed, feeding him his breakfast. Naruto happily accepted and opened his. Chewing softly, Sakura numbly stared at them. Did their relationship get her this heated? Was she really disgusted? Are you done eating, Naruto? Shamsiel asked, finishing her meal. Putting the plates away, he cleared his throat and shook his head. I'm almost done. He muttered. Anko shrugged her shoulders and spread her butter on his toast to notice their grins on each other. She truly had no idea what happened to her the other night with them. Sakura just sighed deeply, too busy drinking her tea. Line break. After hours of travel, they finally arrived at Sunagakure to discuss the defense treaty alliance with the Kazekage Gaara, who Naruto admired due to similar childs due to both of them being Jinchuriki for their villages, having tailed beasts of them. Unfortunately, they were rejected by their peers and struggled to form relations, isolated and dejected. He noticed something about him that no one noticed, that he was good at his craft. No wonder he's able to lead the village, he hopes to in the future also. Shamsiel tapped his shoulder. Naruto looked to see his smiling secret wife looking at him. Are you okay? She asked softly. Why yeah, Naruto replied. Let's go. He said to his group. Anko lead all of them away from the chaotic streets of Suna. They met off with sand shinobis who escorted them into Gaara's place of work. The Kazekage sat behind the desk when Naruto and his group approached him. A small smile played on his oshietes were behind him. The life of a village head was not an easy one. Welcome back. Gaara greeted. Shamsiel nodded and bowed. Thank you very much for meeting us, it's a pleasure. Gaara was intrigued by this stranger before him, he had never seen her before. Who's this? He asked politely. My name is Shamsiel Shahar. I used to be part of the Rain village, but I left after my dad abused me and wanted me to marry someone of his liking. Shamsiel sighed, and Naruto nodded, even though he knew that this story was full of lies. I'm sorry to hear such things happening to you, Gaara spoke sincerely. It's fine, ever since coming to Konoha I've been treated in an amazing manner. Naruto showed me around and he's given me quite a treat. Shamsiel snicked, blushing. Naruto winced a little. She knew what she meant by that. Anko laughed, while Sakura rolled her eyes. Why is she acting all goody-goody with everyone? She groaned in disgust but held her. Anyways, we actually came for serious business. Lady Tsunade wanted me and all of us to sign the Mutual Defense Pact. So if ever the Sound Village or anyone attacks us, we can be prepared. She got the scroll out of her jacket and placed it on the table. You wouldn't want to hurt feelings, right? She smiled and chuckled. Naruto grabbed the scroll and opened it. It read, a truce will be established between the nation of Konoha and Suna, for lasting peace and protection, signed by the Elder Council of Konoha. Naruto said, so what do you think? Of course, it's a good deal for us. We don't want our nations to go to war, and this pact will only make us stronger. Gaara explained. We'll take this as a challenge, and show them that we're better than them in every way possible. Anko cheered, raising her fist in the air. TCH. Gaara laughed. He then signed the scroll, and Naruto and Shamsiel laughed together. Line break. After an amazing and friendly lunch at the local restaurant under Gaara's guidance, Shamsiel and Naruto walked together around Suna, enjoying each other's company after a successful mission. The afternoon was being overtaken by a cool dark night in Suna, as the wind brought forth a breeze that landed on both their faces. That was actually a really good feast. Shamsiel sighed in contentment. Naruto agreed with him wholeheartedly. They walked until they were on top of a balcony when Shamsiel turned to face him, and gave him a warm smile. I guess I behaved accordingly, nay? Shamsiel giggled, rubbing her shoulders to his. Naruto looked into her eyes. He was so fascinated by her slit pupils. Why yeah, I guess I can have a little reward now. She puckered her. Her light pink turned him on so much. Naruto leaned in and edged Shamsiel. Her tail secretly crept up and tickled his crotch. Naruto grinned evilly. He quit hiding behind that mask as his hands traveled down her rear. He gave Shamsiel a light squeeze. Shamsiel grinned. Maybe we should take this to the room that Gaara gave us. She smirked. Naruto again at her, with his invading her, swirling it around his. Let's go. She ed. Naruto grabbed her roughly but with tenderness. She chuckled and then teleported them into the furnished room. Shamsiel placed sound barriers so she can scream as much as she wanted without Sakura hearing them. You're a Uao goddess, Shamsiel-chan. Naruto grabbed Shamsiel by the waist and gave her a hot Y filled with, to which she happily returned. Only for you, my whole body is for you only, she giggled. As her tail and horns grew out of her body again. I'm going to make sure you drown in my semen. Naruto pushed her onto the bed, ing her, and ripping her gear off. Era, yes please, I'm gonna scream all I want. She smirked at him. Naruto crashed his with hers again while also removing his clothes, revealing his throbbing veins, making Shamsiel's water. Naruto saw this and moved his toward her. He nudged his toward her face, gently touching her with it. Take it, it's your dinner, he said softly. She nodded and she placed his her, tasting the glob of pre being sprayed right into her. She then took more of his and ate it. Naruto grabbed her horns and face at her, slurping ly while her rolled around his. After several minutes of this, Naruto gave in and screamed out. His rich semen was pouring into his wife's loving, filling her to the brim. She gulped everything down without losing a single drop. You're awesome, Naruto said, patting her head. She purred softly and took his and ed them. Don't think that I'm done just yet, she whispered. Her eyes then turned red. Naruto gulped but wasn't afraid. She then tackled him and placed his on her. You didn't think I would forget this, do you? She smiled, with drool running out of her. His was fully buried in her tight hole and his balls were deep her, wiggling around. Oh, Shamsiel hissed, it's really deep. Her eyes stopped turning red. She made a stupid slutty smile. So deep, Naruto whispered. Maya's engulfed your. He ed, his hands maging her hands, which made her scream for more. His pelvis was lambing into her woman. Such a good husband. Me. You're into my body, she screamed, moving up and down. Naruto was pumping more and more into her. I'm me. Shamsiel, he screamed. Ah. Shamsiel's eyes rolled back, and his exploded into her. She gritted her teeth when his white goo stopped flowing. She collapsed beside him, panting heavily. Line break. Shamsiel and Naruto were sleeping beside each other in their room, a few hours after making love to each other, and Naruto proudly feeding his succubus wife. When all of a sudden there was a sigil in the room on the ground. They both groggily woke up instantly. What's this? Naruto asked in a groggy state. They were still both. A figure appeared that stared into both of them. She had red hair, similar to Shamsiel's, and she was a tad bit taller than her. She had scars and marks all across her body, and a bruised. Shamsiel opened her eyes fully. It was her sister. How did she get here? Maya-sama, what happened to you? She gasped horribly. Naruto looked at them confused. You two know each other? Hey Shamsiel. Long time no see, she stated. Her figure was weakened and not a plump figure like any other succubus. Line break. After getting cleaned up from her scars and bruises, Shamsiel was angry. Who did this to you? Shamsiel demanded to know. Vivolt did this. You know that human guy that was interested in me. At first, I wanted to just wither him to dust, but he sweet-talked me. He was kind of cute, so I gave him a chance. She then cried a little bit in her arms. Shamsiel walked towards her and wrapped her own arms around her, trying to silence her tears of pain. At first he was really nice, and I wanted to marry him and give him the binding contract. But then he was really aggressive towards me. He hit me, and always slapped my face very hard. I wanted to go back to our own realm, but he told me that if I ever left his side, he would kill me with this magic item. It was purplish, and when he pointed it at me, he said it was a device that would take away semen that a succubus has acquired throughout her lifetime. I just don't know. I didn't have enough energy to go back, and even when I did, he just made me feel so guilty for leaving him. She shook her hands. I'm as scared of him. He might come here and actually kill me. She stumbled, biting her, and her sobs began to turn her. Shamsiel was shocked. She couldn't believe her sister was in a position like this. Naruto just sat back listening to this awful story. Shamsiel gritted her teeth. Where is he? Her eyes turned bloodthirsty red. wanting to exact revenge on anyone that would dare threaten her sisters. I was a fool, a fake. How did it ever come to this? He wasn't the same person he was before. I wanted to make a family with him. I'm a succubus, a creature of an pawn. Why was I doing this? I could have just made him wither under me. But that didn't happen. He seduced me with his words. How can a mere mortal have control over me? I came from Sanctum to find more prey, yet I was the one being targeted. I never knew what he was going to do to me. But I allowed myself to be like this, under his spell. Even after he was abusing me, I still loved him, even though I hated him. He was the only love I had in this life. He made me feel special, that smile. That damn bastard smile of his lit something in me. I don't know what. Every time I had done something wrong or displeased him, he would slap me across the face. Who did he think he was? I was a demon, one of the daughters of Queen Mephisu. I could make him disappear, but I didn't. He would always give me flowers and me, that was his way of forgiveness, but I despised this act. He was gaslighting me and making me fall for his tricks. It was just an illusion. Line break. Come on, just one more time, Volt whispered in her ear, causing Maya to shiver. And no. I have my limits too. Maya stated, and faced the always been a hunter. Volt wasn't interested in being a shinobi. He kept the entire forest as his own private habitat. It was almost like a mini-world to him, filled with trees and nature. His bedroom was filled with various trinkets and plants. There were a few tables to make it at least spacious for him. After convincing Maya to stay with him for the night, they were sleeping together once again. But Volt wanted a little something more. Heh. Why are you ignoring my requests? Aren't succubus supposed to please men? We can also not be interested in them, you know? She muttered. Hey, I'm just stating the facts. Volt stated, he had more evil intentions in his mind. He wanted to try to out. Maybe I would have to pull this out to change your mind. Maya, not opening her eyes, just ignored his bluff. You can go yeep. Maya let out a squeak as Volt grabbed her by her and got on top of her. Maya screamed. Volt, stop. Kamek, stop. I'll scream ly. Who's going to hear you, baby? This body is mine, you're just a whore for me to use. Maya was horrified, he had gone too far. Her eyes were glowing red but it was immediately halted by a mysterious device that she had never seen. Her powers as a succubus were almost fading from her. Her body felt weak and tired. She couldn't move, all she could do was watch as Volts began entering her. You've really grown into a fine succubus, sweetheart, he whispered in her ear, maging her. Maya's eyes went back to normal, tears streaming down her face. She felt sick, she felt like an absolute failure of a demon. Maya wanted to marry him, she loved him, but they abused her judgment. She tried to hold back her sobs and screams, but she didn't want to give away their position to anyone. It seemed as if he had heard her, because the next thing she knew, he started ripping her nightie off. There was also a note of observation. Unlike Naruto who just had Shamsiel, it was always consensual, but with Volt, he was vile. And he didn't care about that sort of thing. If he wanted something, he would take it without any ethics. Maybe this is why no one wanted him as a shinobi, because he was like this, and since she was a succubus, unlike Naruto, he would put a special blue barrier when he had UAL contact with her since his member was weaker than his. Desperately trying to get away, Maya used what energy was left of her and tried to push him away. Running away from the house as fast as possible. But Volt caught up to her, he pulled her wings, which emitted screams of pain from her body. Please, I'm sorry, Cammy. I'll do anything you want. Just don't slaughter me. She screamed. Volt chuckled, kicked her in the ribs, and punched her face, which caused What's that, HM? He smirked, leaned in close to her, and whispered, You'll do anything. Maya shook her head. She refused to believe that such a man existed. Anything. Maya muttered in defeat. She hatched a plan. Volt chuckled, Good girl, now why don't you Maya in it? He whispered, removing his pants and placing his harden directly at her face. She nodded slowly and positioned herself toward his. She opened her and began to slurp. Volt sighed in contentment when all of a sudden, she bit down with her fangs. Emitted some blood on his. Ah! Volt screamed at the top of his lungs, I'm going to put your head on a plate, you damn demon. He grabbed the item, but all of a sudden Maya punched his bladder and made her tail trip him up, causing Volt to fall down headfirst. Crack! He had, knocked out by the pain. Maya stood up gingerly and summoned a sigil to find the nearest succubus that was maybe this realm. She couldn't go back to Sanctum because it required energy she didn't have. She had to hurry fast. Cammy knows what horrors await her if he woke up and attempts to find her. After Maya was finally quiet, done with the story, her head was on Shamsiel's lap, with Naruto beside her, shocked about how a man can do that to her. So after all that. Shamsiel's voice was shaking, she was in a murderous rage, and her sister was abused by Volt. She could feel tears pricking at the corner of her eyes. The pain of this was so overwhelming. She wanted to destroy Volt from this plane of existence. Naruto looked at Shamsiel and she could feel the anger. He was angry too. He knew the pain of being neglected, as he had no love growing up. Just the third Hokage giving him checks and that's it. He gripped his fist. We have to do something, Naruto stated. He wanted revenge. Maya looked at him and smiled weakly. Here was Shamsiel's husband acting like a real protector towards him. Even though they had just met, she opened her. Shamsiel whispered, Maya had. I can't go like this to face him. We need to do something first. Maya blushed, staring at Naruto. He looked puzzled. Succubus needs semen to restore their energy. Shamsiel sighed. He should have already known this by now. Just look at her, Naruto, Shamsiel whispered. Although she was patched up, her body still had N across her body. The blood dripping out of her hairline was patched, but it was still pretty brutal to see. She needs your semen, Naruto, Shamsiel said, looking directly at him. There was no joking around. She wasn't in a teasing mood. I don't know if it's not like he wanted to, but he had his reservations. Naruto, you don't want to. Maya pleaded. I just don't feel like I want to take advantage of you. Naruto looked down at the floor. Shamsiel snapped her, and out appeared a cup. The same cup that was used to make the engagement with Shamsiel. Trust me, you're not. We need to defeat Volt for what he did. We'll teach that bastard a lesson. I'm going to snap his body the moment I find him, Shamsiel said. She then snapped her again, making his pajama shorts disappear. Naruto, I'm going to extract your semen from this cup again, so Maya could drink it, okay? She said. Her tail slithered to his and wrapped around it, glowing pink. Why yeah. He smiled a little bit. Maya giggled softly, regaining a little bit of her energy. But they needed to hurry. Shamsiel quickly at Naruto like she did 1,000 times already. Her body was again along with Naruto's. They were face to face, and Naruto adored her smell, turning him on even more. Their eyes wrestled each other, as they were drinking each other's saliva. His rubbed on her body. Shamsiel smiled, and her eyes turned to blood. Naruto's breath hitched. He was turned on when her eyes were like that. Maybe it was part of the ritual. Are you ready? Shamsiel whispered. Naruto smiled, and he nodded, and shivers were sent up his spine. She then was on her knees as her gorged on his and took it all the way. Naruto grabbed her horns as she kept ing him. After 15 minutes, Naruto began to breathe in a fast-paced way. Shamsiel, and my wife. I'm about to. She blushed. She loved being called his wife, a true mark of affection. Then, all you can, you big husband. Release all you can, she muffled. Her tail was wrapped around his legs and began to tickle his ball sacks. Naruto couldn't take it. His sperm exploded, and with that Shamsiel pulled out and placed the cup on the of his. Waves and waves of sperm emptied into the cursed cup, filling it to a brim. Naruto sat down, exhausted from all his essence being taken away. The mischievous succubus then went to her sister and put it on her. Come on, Maya, drink up, she said softly. Maya didn't hesitate and sipped everything like she was told to. All of a sudden there was a spark of electricity in the air. Maya began to turn into her old self again. The scars were gone, her head trauma disappeared, and her figure was back to normal again. Ah, his semen is awesome. And it's so tasty. You're really lucky to have him as a mate and husband, Shamsiel. Maya chuckled. Yeah, such a sweet shinobi, and having his way with me. She chuckled. Maya floated over to Naruto. Thanks so much, hero. I'm going to pay you back, she stated. Her were on top of his head, pressing them up and down. Heh, I can't wait for that. Naruto enjoyed her company. She was much like Shamsiel in terms of appearance and personality. But she was a tad more adventurous. Her smile then turned into a grimaced look. Now, how are you going to get back at that bastard? He needs to pay dearly for his abuse. I'm tired of hiding the facade. I hate him. I hate him, she growled. There was that one moment of his look and smile flashing in her mind, but she quickly vanquished that horrid thought. Naruto stood up, feeling himself again after he got some of his energy back. He smiled. Shamsiel looked at him. She knew that evil grin anywhere. I have an idea. Naruto thought Maya could act like she can come back to him, but she's going to be wearing a wedding dress, acting like an apologetic succubus, regretting how everything went down. Volt will take the bait, and then we appear, and the rest is going to be in kicking. Naruto grinned at his idea, patting himself on the back. That was an ingenious plan. Wait a second. How are we supposed to find a wedding dress for me to wear? Maya stated she didn't like the idea because she didn't even want to talk to him anymore and wanted to destroy him for all the damage he caused to her. Naruto's eyes dimmed. Shouldn't Succubus have the ability to form clothes? Shamsiel changes into lingerie every time. Oh yeah? Forgot, Maya stated. Sometimes she forgot they could do random things like that. Any objections? Naruto said, looking at both of them. None here. Shamsiel said, that sounds like a really nice idea. But where are we gonna hide so we can attack him? Just hide the bushes. I'm not really comfortable with this, but as long as you guys are by my side, anything is possible, she said, nodding her head. Okay, let's go, Naruto ordered. Maya nodded her head, and with full energy, she easily was able to teleport them. Line break. Volt had woken up from his unconscious state, and after he did she realized she was gone. That bitch, he whispered, that ing wench, attacking me and biting my. If I see her again. Volt. Maya knocked on her door. His eyes darted across the other side of his room. Maya opened up and what he saw perplexed him. She was wearing a white wedding dress, with heels and a pink flower on top of her head. She looked gorgeous, there was no doubt about that. She gulped. She was probably having regrets about this but followed through anyway. Naruto and Shamsiel were behind a bush near the house, making no noise. I'm sorry that I did all those things to you, Volt, please. Let's marry each other. I want to have your baby. Maya stared at him, looking for a response. Volt chuckled, which confused Maya, but held her act together for the plan. He smiled at her. You really enjoyed that I had my way with your body. You truly fell in love with such a vile man. She then grabbed her hand. His touch terrified her. Don't touch me. I hate you. You disgust me, you pig. Maya growled through her teeth. Maya then noticed his hands grope her. That's a lie and you know it. You still love me, don't you? He whispered, biting her ear. She cringed with fear. All of a sudden, without warning, Naruto and Shamsiel both attacked him, Naruto using his Rasengan, and Shamsiel using his claws to swipe at his. Volt then was on the ground. Maya escaped from his clutches, and Shamsiel then went on top of him and hissed ly, showing her fangs, her eyes turning a blood demonic red. I'll slaughter you, you absolute monster, you don't deserve to live. She scratched his face with his claws again and emitted screams of pain. You really thought you could worm your way into her heart again. She punched him with all his might several times, leaving bruises on his eyes. Shamsiel then used her free hand to punch his nose with full force, making a crunch of knuckles hitting cartilage. No more lies. Striking him again, causing him to be mum, he just smiled weakly again. What are you smirking, you piece of shit? Naruto growled, stomping on the side of his ribs. Maya is a fine piece of. I enjoyed raping her body. Creatures like her should know her place. It took a real man to control and please her. She wouldn't beg for more. Such a tragedy that she fell in love with an evil man like myself. Maya gasped. Her flashbacks would come into her mind. Volt would always entrap her with a magic item, causing her to be weak, and him her all day and night without any rest. A tear was trickling on the side of her left eye. She felt like a failure of not only a succubus but a woman for allowing her to let him take advantage of her. Shamsiel and Naruto both stomped on his face and ribs. Now is not the time to be arrogant, you prick, Shamsiel growled. So what are you going to do, kill me? My gang will just find you guys out and murder all of you. You don't know who you're messing with, go ahead, kill me. Naruto swiped him by punching and kicking him multiple times. You! Volt then used what was left of his energy, and lunged at Naruto, putting him on the ground. The attack was sudden. The sisters looked at him and emitted a red glow. He had really crossed the line this time. Maya and Shamsiel both nodded, and used their tails and wrapped them around Volt. Wah! Volt screamed, and the tails began to heat up to a temperature unthinkable to the human skin. Volt was shrieking, tears of pain began to overtake his body, and the two girls watched, with pleased expressions as he was burning alive. His bones were cracking and crumbling away into nothing. His skin was turning into ashes. Naruto sat there bewildered and quite upset. He didn't feel like he didn't get enough brutal punches and kicks in that spag's body. Don't worry, Naruto, he's going to someplace where he'll be punished for eternity. Isn't that right, Maya? Oh yes, he's going to love his new stay. She chuckled, their eyes turned black and pointed to his deceased body. Line break. Volt was spinning around and flying helplessly through a void. His ears burned and bled from the roaring sound of countless souls screaming in agony. This was not a succubus haven, but quite literally the opposite. The darkness that was now his prison took the shape of millions of flying demons and goblins, latching onto his skin with their razor-sharp teeth, seemingly leaving no wound. But their bites were worse than death. It stung worse than Naruto's punches. He struggled in vain against them, trying to escape this hellhole. The swarm of evil was inescapable. He realized this was only the beginning, as he witnessed his entire gang being consumed by them. Their ethereal body was chewed and spat out in half, leaving them in pain. Above he could see a woman, having a satisfied smile. It was Mephisu, queen of the Succubus, who was also the leader of another group of violent demons who are punishing bad souls and trying to abuse a succubus and a monster who was a rapist was the ultimate sin. She smiled and looked down at him on her throne. Welcome, Volt. I hope you and your friends enjoy your stay. This is punishment for raping my daughter Maya. You didn't think I would notice, as long as I'm still the leader of the Succubus. I will make sure you will pay eternally for your sins against us. There could only be one established empire in this plane of existence. I'm going to enjoy myself and my demons ravaging your body, destroying it every day. She giggled evilly. Volt was mortified about what was happening, and he screamed, No! No! I'm sorry for what I've done, spare me. His pleas fell on deaf ears, and Mephisa's eyes turned red. She laughed evilly and pointed her trident at him. Volt's face was one of despair as the demons around him began to bite him further, falling into the lake of lava. Line break. Thanks, Naruto and Shamsiel, for what you've done. I feel better now. I'm glad he's gone forever. Maya stared, her tail turning into a heart. Yeah, you're welcome, Naruto said. It was morning time. The trio was on top of the Hokage monument after returning from Suna. Shamsiel smiled and at both Naruto and Maya. I'm glad he's gone. He's going to be in a dark place forever. Shamsiel blushed delightfully, so Maya whispered seductively. Latching onto Naruto's arms, with her touching them, Shamsiel did the same. How about I pay you back with my body? Maya happily said ing him, and opening his. Hey you guys, don't forget about me. Shamsiel ing Naruto, and biting his neck. Of course, Shamsiel. Naruto said happily, I'm willing to paint the outside of your bodies with my semen. It seems you guys are hungry. He said, both hugging them. Ing there? Oh, Nara baby, Shamsiel stated. Just possess us already. Maya also quipped in. They both teleported into his room to enjoy his essence. Maya was now in a much happier mood. Being with both of them as they teleported into his room, making sweet love to his body and enjoying his delicious semen, spraying it on their faces, tails, and Maya was enjoying this strange shinobi's company. Naruto loved how he was able to bang Succubus and not even die. He never even knew why this occurred. It was another day the Succubus realm and Naruto was taking a shower there large, enjoying the work he did on Maya and Shamsiel, who were sleeping side by side. Two sisters who enjoyed his more than their lives. He could tell by their s and squeals when it came to him, they loved what he did for them. It felt good to be a part of this realm. Maybe he didn't want to be Hokage. What was stopping him was that Queen Mephisto was hinting that he could rule and have a harem. With his infinite amount of clones, he could feed an entire population, and he would personally feed Shamsiel, the one who introduced him to their race. And with Volt all but banished, he felt very secure and could do about anything he wanted here. The thought of endless amounts of, and how their features looked so unique, with their horns and tails that can sting him and make him gush semen got him turned on. Looks like you're having fun. Mind if I join you? A soft voice spoke out. He gasped softly as his grew a bit longer, the voice sounding really erotic. He turned around. It was a woman who looked like the opposite of Shamsiel and Maya. Rather than having darker tan skin, she had pale lavender eyes and light blonde hair that fell past her waist, which she kept tied at the end with a bow, with matching horn colors on the side of her head. She was completely, and her were in similar sizes to Shamsiel and Farika, but if he had to guess were a tad smaller. Who are you? He said, both terrified and turned on at the same time at the sight of her body. I'm so glad you asked, she said. She then winked and walked closer to him. The water of the shower was hitting her now. My name is Cheyenne. I'm the Succubus priestess of the sanctum. I bless Succubus with their first dose of semen extracted from the demons here. Just a small cup so they can be familiar with what it tastes like. Whoa, Naruto said, a Succubus priestess, so she's like a religious figure here of some sort. Indeed, Cheyenne said, closing her eyes and smiling. She then looked at his, which was pointing up and stiff. Speaking of semen, she smirked evilly. She then grabbed his and began to jerk it, making him her and Naruto tried to pull away, but she wasn't letting go. The sensation was amazing but kind of tight. Humans aren't that durable compared to demons, but this thing is really something? She then kneeled down and ate his, blushing a bit. Naruto ate again, touching her horns which caused her to hitch her breath. She continued to speak. Shamsiel was always whispering about yours in particular. Once she saw a glimpse she couldn't hold herself. She wanted you to lay with her as soon as possible. She was always the most determined to get her prey, but once she saw how cute you were and how you embraced her, I found it very adorable, she said, containing to jerk him, planting ES on his in the process. How do you know all this? He asked, leaning in a bit so her can touch his member. A priestess never reveals her secrets, especially to horny Jinchuriki. She giggled. Hey, he pouted, don't say that. She laughed, I'm just kidding, but please take care of me. I've heard rumors that you are much more powerful at than I ever am, so I want to confirm the rumors and also taste a bit of your semen. It's not fair that they can hog you all by themselves while I'm blessing Succubus with semen all day long, she stated. She then added the side of his, base to head. So delicious, his is so perfect, imagine it of me. She thought that feeling was amplified by her glistening feeling wet at the thought of this human violating her. Naruto grabbed her horns and pushed her, engulfing his of it. Damn Cheyenne, he spat out, pushing his in a rhythm, you're making it hard to focus. She grinned around his and started humming, her eyes turning a little darker, bringing him closer to an. Oh! He screamed. His then spat out globs of thick semen on her face and down her throat. She grinned again, struggling to everything, but enjoying herself. So delicious, please stay here and my brains out. She commanded. She stood up and opened her checks towards him, showing him everything, teasing him, and sticking her out. Naruto's eyes grinned pervertedly. He was having the time of his life in this realm. She then grabbed her and spread them wide, pushing the priestess's unholy. She knew she was going to like this because drool was trailing from the corner of his and down his chin. Naruto's then pushed her. He fit her like a glove. Cheyenne began to go crazy at the alarming pace that he was going, working her like it was nothing. Naruto, you're so damn big. Shamsiel loves being ed like this, doesn't she, that lucky slut? She ed out, as the thick base slid in outside of her being worked like a street whore. Large glops of pre began to lube her, and Cheyenne loved it. Naruto grabbed the priestess by their hair and growled at her ear, grabbing her in the process. Cheyenne, I'm going to. Naruto shouted as his climax was going to almost end him. Don't stop. She commanded, and he clenched her teeth. Ah! He ed, and a pool of white semen began to explode her. His was forced from his as the succubus priestess was going wild from it, falling down softly on the tile floor. A pool of semen then spurted out from Naruto, landing on her hair, her face, and her. Damn, you really know how to control us as a species. You're really good at this. I thought you were going to die or something. She chuckled, her lolling out from her body twitching slightly. Naruto then sat down near her. He didn't know how long he would keep this up. How did he know he was there in the first place? They were both tired as they closed their eyes, with the water still running on. Naruto got up and stumbled a bit, leaving Shiho by herself. As soon as he got out of the shower, he saw that Shamsiel and Maya were already up, giving him both a pouting face. Hey, good morning? He giggled nervously. Cheyenne got out of the shower behind him. That was really amazing. How are you surviving all of us? She stated Succubus could take the semen out of their male victims due to their Fual power, leaving them almost fizzled, but Naruto was different. He was completely unfazed by their power, and had no problems ing an entire army of Succubus. As Cheyenne-sama? Shamsiel yelled out, gasping. She was supposed to be in the Far East Temple with Kagaya, blessing Succubus with their first doses of sperm on the other side of Sanctum. What are you doing here? Maya questioned. Well, to tell you the truth, Maya, I came here for you after Mephisto told me about the abuse you suffered from Volt. But apparently Naruto cured that, didn't he? Cheyenne playfully glared at the shinobi, who had an expression of happiness on his face when she put the circumstances like that. He kind of felt guilty for having with her immediately after everything that transpired. But the older Succubus enjoyed it, so he shouldn't sweat it. But I'm just wondering, how do you do it, Naruto? How can a human survive all of us? We're all powerful in our own right and can take the life of full men without hesitance. What makes you so different? Cheyenne said, staring into his eyes. To tell you the truth, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more resilient than most? Naruto shrugged, smiling. Cheyenne smiled back, and Shamsiel interjected. You guys are having too much fun with my mate. Shamsiel pouted cutely. Maya shoved her sister's shoulder. You can't hog Naruto-kun all to yourself. His keeps poking Maya mumbled. She had lightly while touching her tail, enjoying the thoughts of him ing and making love to her, as the two continued to bicker while Naruto watched them, enjoying the spectacle. Cheyenne's eyes widened. It can't be. She read in the temple altar something about a human man from a different time hundreds of years ago who had the ability to succubus and not die. The myth states that a masked shinobi was in a forest, going on a so-called succubus prowl, when he found a demoness that was enjoying the night sky and semi-mediating. he would undress and go towards them slowly, revealing his hardened and tempting the succubus, whose tail and wings flung out, and hissed erotically with her sharp fangs, enjoying the sight of what she saw. A human man that was able to sacrifice himself and that didn't even have to chase him down, making her job easier. As soon as the succubus approached the mysterious masked man, he would attack her and crash his onto hers, grabbing her as tightly as possible. The succubus seemed confused. This wasn't supposed to be how it was supposed to go down. She would have the upper hand because they know that men can't resist them, but this man wasn't afraid of anything. It seems like he's done this before. Find a succubus prowling around, take off his clothes, and entice them to him to death. Did you think you would have your way with me that easily? The masked shinobi said, poking his into her, his poking her belly button. He sneered and placed her down, ing her more furiously. The succubus was at a loss. This was humiliating to her, but she couldn't resist his meaty rod. His then rammed her throat, and she could only gag on his, as he invaded her with his. He was so experienced with taming succubus. She then screamed as she was about to when her began to constrict as he started to. She let out a muffled squeal as that was enough to make the masked man explode into her. She had so much to, and Cheyenne remembered that the book said that the succubus gasped for air, her face drenched in. Oh, what's it? Succubus like you are supposed to last forever, don't you love? Human males would love to a piece of like yourself. Or you've never had someone like me before. I vow to every succubus that comes to the human lands, destroying their egos and getting them pregnant, spraying my semen on their cursed s. He grabbed her very tightly. Please no more, the succubus pleaded. I promise I won't attack human men anymore. But the masked men wanted revenge. He began to stroke his and look at the body of the succubus, her blonde hair with curls on the side, and her big were enough to make any man cream their pants. He grabbed her tail, which caused her to yelp in pleasure and pain. He enjoyed ing her tail and wrapping it around his. Such a babe, walking around with a body like this. I'm going to you until you walk with a limp, he growled erotically, pressing his against her backside, rubbing in between her, as he groped her deep into her. The succubus screamed as the masked man continued to her like this for hours, ing her, and holding her horns also. He also prodded her ly, which caused her to lose all control. After 8 erotic hours, the succubus was laid on the ground. Her body was drenched in his semen, her was out, and her tail was weakened to the point that she couldn't move it. The humiliation and sensation of being dominated was an amazing experience. How pathetic, really. Looks like your demoness CL didn't teach you correctly, right? The man then prodded her with his. She didn't understand what he said, but she did him again. I'll return to every succubus I encounter. You haven't seen the last of me. His tough talk and his imagining an army of succubus to conquer were beginning to turn him on again. But he noticed that she was too weak to move around, so he decided to leave her. He then walked away from the forest. After that moment, succubus mercenaries were tasked with finding this man after the event. Cheyenne also realized that the man had blue eyes, just like Naruto's, but it was impossible to find out his hairstyle because he was masked, due to his identity. But she remembered reading that it continued on. Erotic succubus mercenaries were also defeated by his UL prowess. They couldn't resist also. He enjoyed ing them and they all wanted turns with the masked human. Cheyenne thought, and then looked at Naruto. Was he a reincarnation of this man? He had to be. Other human men would die at the mercy of their cursed woman. But not him for some reason. Naruto. We're going to run some tests, Cheyenne said, grabbing his hand. What tests? He exclaimed. Where are you taking Naruto to? Shamsiel questioned, curiously looking between the two. Come if you want to, Shamsiel. He could be the reincarnation, Cheyenne stated. They all grabbed their clothes and headed to Sanctum's laboratory. Guys, this isn't funny. What am I doing in this position? Naruto was laid back first on a lab table. His was being eyed by a supercomputer of some sort. Interesting, the voice of Reina can be heard, who was one of the first daughters of Shahar. She was an elite arch-succubus studying the evolution of succubus and how their bodies function and work. Basically, she's the senior biologist for succubus matters. Her younger sister was chewing gum and playing with her tail was Leona Morimoto, who didn't care for science and just wanted to be here to see the human for the first time. And she was admiring Naruto for his physique body and his, which was bouncing due to the machine's test. So what do you guys think? Is he a descendant of that masked man? Cheyenne asked. Shamsiel was at her side, compelled with this question also, considering that she was the one who found Naruto in the first place, and that he was unaffected by her. Maybe. Test results look conclusive, but are kind of iffy. She shrugged. Naruto sighed. He was wondering where all of this was leading. He hadn't done a mission for a while. Did he really want to do so? Maybe he should stay here with Shamsiel and establish a new life for himself. The Hokage position was all about favoritism, and he never exactly had that in his life, except for here. He was enjoying the go-out in this realm. Especially since Shamsiel told him that rumors were swirling about him and every Succubus in this realm wanted a piece of him. His thoughts were interrupted when Reina poked his. He stared at her. She was wearing a two-piece leather black bikini with heels, and wearing a long strapper which covered her. "TCH, are you looking to me also?" He rolled his eyes. Wow, such a boastful attitude. Reina smiled at him, revealing her right towards him, causing his to enjoy her body. "Reina-sama, stay away, we're still running tests," her older sister demanded. She rolled her eyes and walked back. Naruto gulped as his eyes were glued to her. After a few minutes of this, papers began to buzz and print, and Leona grabbed them. "Wow, so the test results did match. Naruto is the descendant of the masked man who was able to withstand succubus encounters," she said, reading the paper. The whole room gasped. Naruto looked confused. Who was this masked man that they were all talking about? Wow, it's no wonder his UAL prowess was incredible. He must be the descendant of him, or something? Reina stated. Looking at the results, Shamsiel took a look also. That's why she couldn't him to death like all the others. "Can I get up please? My body kind of aches now," Naruto complained. His was trapped in a device while his legs were chained. "I want to test him out." Reina stated she wanted to walk over to him and see if she could get his of her, only to be stopped by an angry Shamsiel. "You guys are vultures," she growled, hissing at them. Reina slapped her hand away, and her wings appeared. "It's not like you can keep him all to yourself, he's special. And you guys have had your way with him." Reina smirked. Looking down at Naruto, he smirked back. "Go ahead," he said. "All your brains out if you let me out of here." He winked. Reina's breath hitched. His stood up tall and was way different than the other species that Farika described. She removed the chains from his legs and the trapping off his. "I get to him for the first time," Reina thought. Shamsiel pouted and looked away. It's not like he could stop him. She introduced him to their species, and succubus have no shame about who they have with. Reina got on top of him and grabbed his, directing it to her. Naruto grabbed her and slammed her down. Causing her to shriek, he began to hold her, and he began to and out, making her giggle. She liked the feeling of his her. He gripped her thighs and lifted up her butt, making sure it wouldn't hurt too much to his waist. The younger blonde grunted. She obliged as he and each second. "You are mine," Naruto said, ing her and jerking off her tail. Cheyenne watched this all unfold. Just like the masked man, she thought of. Naruto directed her to all her fours and her, causing the succubus to cry out. She loved it. "More," Cheyenne commanded. Naruto obeyed as he pumped his into her. Reina et ly, enjoying every bit of his entering her vagina. "Again," Reina demanded. Naruto disobeyed her. Instead, he stood up and prodded his on her nose. "It's the smell you enjoy, don't you?" Naruto grinned. Reina smiled and ed his repeatedly while blushing. "Oh, Kami!" she yelled out again. Her legs quivered. Naruto felt her tight grip on him, and he poked his with her nose several times, but by the moment he entered her, he exploded semen in her. She ed it down, and her face turned redder. Naruto then put himself her again, as she ed her, and began ing him. They all observed she looked cute in the process as her moved in a circular movement, and she had her sticking out in the most adorable manner. Phew, such an amazing taste. Reina enjoyed it by ing her and he got down off the lab bed table hybrid and put on his clothes. Shamsiel looked at him. Sigh, I hope she's not as great as me. Shamsiel glared at him. No, of course not. Naruto wrapped his hands around her, ing her cheek. I can't thank you enough for introducing me to your species. I feel very happy because of you, making Shamsiel a little bit better hearing that. And I want to say something, Naruto announced. I want to be here in Sanctum, with you guys. I don't want to be in Konoha. Every succubus in the room with his eyes were raised. I want to learn more about you as society, and please all of you guys, with all my might. I feel at home here, even though you guys have the ability to kill me, and Shamsiel wanted to have with me till I was dead. I still feel safer here. I don't feel like I want to be a ninja anymore. They all gasped. Shamsiel was surprised. He always told her he wanted to be Hokage and that was his aspiration. She didn't know that he had another motive, and now she did. She felt sorry for him. But there is nothing she could do for him. The other Succubus nodded their heads in understanding. Within moments there was clapping coming from the other room. Excellent, really wonderful, Mephisa proudly said. Mama? Shamsiel and Cheyenne said. I expected all of this to happen. You were born with great UAL energy. I approve of this decision. She moved closer to him and ed him piantly. Moments later she pulled back and smiled brightly. You knew all about this? Leona said, looking at her curiously. Hi, I knew that Naruto was the descendant of the masked man who survived an army of Succubus. In fact, if this didn't happen, I would probably ask Naruto to stay here. She then turned around at Naruto. I'm sorry about your child Naruto, the ostracization, the abuse from others, it must have been very hard. And I want to thank you for surviving us. As ironic as it may sound, we may be ruthless but we also have our ways with one another. If someone ever hurts you I will personally destroy them. You are protected here. Wow, thanks. Naruto blushed at the older demoness. No need to thank me, you saved Maya. I know I should have done it, but I am forbidden from leaving this realm. She sighed. She felt awful for not stopping Volt, but she can rest easy knowing that he will never get to her and harm any succubus ever. Now come on, for this to work, we need to cast a spell so people in Konoha won't care that you're gone. Besides, since we found out you're the descendant of the masked man, we want to keep you here on our side. Mephisto chuckled evilly, her eyes glowing piercing red while her wings expanded and enlarged. Naruto chuckled nervously. Great Kami, what did he just agree to? Shamsiel wanted to say something but she just sighed and let it go. Everyone wanted her mate now. Mephisto then walked towards the former shinobi and covered his eyes, and this for some reason caused him to get knocked out in a daze. Shamsiel's eyes lit up fearfully. Mom, what are you doing? She whimpered. I'm just going to take him to my private lair. He has to sign the contract so I can maneuver the spell. Mephisto walked over to him and lifted him up. He was completely cold. But Shamsiel walked towards her, but was stopped by the Reina. Let her do it, Shamsiel. She glared at Shamsiel's eyes, which darkened by the annoyance of her not having a say in anything. Don't worry, he'll be fine. I obviously need him for this to work. And with that Mephisto disappeared while carrying Naruto in his arms, still out cold. Naruto woke up in a cold semi-sweat. He looked around, and discovered he was in a bed. He rose up softly and saw a figure across the room. He blinked twice to get a clear image. She was chanting some prayers softly while mixing some potions in a clear jar. Naruto got a good look at Mephisto. She was now wearing a black lingerie that covered absolutely nothing on her body, but body had some pink glows around her. Her perfect round mesmerizing. A lot larger and rounder than Shamsiel's, even though he considered her body to be the best. Mephisto turned around and smiled. Oh, you're awake now. She smirked. I'm done with my part of the spell to help make Konoha forget that you were ever there, and then you can spend all your time in Sanctum, helping me defend my kingdom. She stated softly. Naruto couldn't concentrate. He was just in awe of Mephisto's figure. Her large swaying was making his rage on. She saw this and smiled. Oh, so you want to be here? Mephisto smiled and eyed her. Naruto sighed and nodded his head softly. Why, yeah, his was wiggling from under her bedsheets. Her long blonde hair with a dark skin tone was such a turn-on for him. Good boy. Now she got on all fours and proceeded to crawl to him. Her scent was seducing him. In order for this spell to work and to make a contract, semen needs to be deposited in or on me. Then it can be placed in that jar that I was conjuring spells. For this to work, you wouldn't mind. He didn't give her time to finish, as Naruto's were pressed onto Mephisto's, their s rolling on each other, swapping saliva. Naruto then stood up and released his towards her. I now get to have the real thing instead of the clones, she stated, his gently. Were you jealous? Naruto chuckled evilly, poking his on her nose and seeing the pre-drip all over. Why, yes, she blushed. He then suddenly grabbed her nose and made her him, which she happily did. Her eyes were turning red when she did this, recanting the spells in her mind. He grabbed her horns and made her gorge on his, causing him to ly. After more than a half an hour, he began to jerk violently, causing him to explode tons of delicious cream in her. Shivers went down his spine as her tail began to tickle his ball sacks as he let go of her horns. She sighed happily. Now you need to enter me, she whispered, opening her legs. Naruto grinned. I just have to do one thing first. She then gasped as he went deep down on her and spread her, and took a long, causing him to go over her clitoris, which caused the succubus queen to out in ecstasy, and within a few seconds, she came and spilled onto his face, and he continued and drinking her sweet nectar from her demoness woman. When he was done, he looked up and saw that her face was entirely red and sighing heavenly. Wow, you're really amazing. Mephisto said lightly, grabbing her. Naruto then lifted himself and positioned his in her entrance. Letting his own hands mage her, he noticed that every time his was near her folds, a unique succubus tattoo would glow up in a pink mist. Is this the spell working? Naruto asked in his thoughts. Only one way to find out. He slid his entire into her folds. He felt the hit the back of her wall hard, and her climax was immediate. Mephisto's eyes was glowing red, blushing hard at the impact of her folds reacting to his. She murmured the spell and was happily loving all of what he was doing to her as his meaty shaft was pumping her. Oh yes, that's it. Mess up my ass, human. You really want to be here with us? We'll give you everything you want. Stay by our side, she said, chanting the spell, her head saliva from the sides. Naruto up and down in a quicker motion, his body and becoming messed up due to her soaking folds. Mephisto was being driven with several S, he screamed ly. Mephisto's succubus tattoo above her folds was illuminating. He spilled semen into her and on her stomach and face. Naruto's was panting hard. He was still alive, thankfully. At that moment, all the semen that was on her and her then was magically transported into the orb that was holding the spell. I am Mephisto Shahar, Queen of the Succubus, hereby allow Uzumaki Naruto into Sanctum Saminkus. And with that, all of the ninja's world's interactions with Naruto, whether personal or professional, was hereby null and void, except for Shamsiel's and the demonesses that he knew and bedded. The orb turned black and disappeared. Naruto sighed. He felt happier here. Most of the citizens in Konoha treated him horribly ever since he was a child. Now that he was here, he felt like he belonged. Mephisto smiled gently. Welcome to Sanctum, she said softly. Naruto nodded and got off of her, his still throbbing. The queen giggled. Here, take this. She then conjured a ring for him to take. It was embroiled with pink and yellow diamonds in the center. Shamsiel is probably a little angry that I took you for so long, and I always heard that humans give each other rings as forgiveness. So why not do the same for my daughter? She winked. Naruto looked at the ring in awe. He wasn't expecting something like this. Does she know that it's really about marriage? Naruto asked to himself. Thanks. He stated softly. Well, he was going to propose to Shamsiel, even though she did mark him as her mate, and he felt kind of bad about laying down with so many of her sisters and her own mother. I need to get back to her, Naruto stated. Mephisto nodded. He then ran out the room and towards her room. As soon as Naruto entered Shamsiel's room, a trident almost hit him, but thankfully he dodged at the last second. Where are you, Naruto? I'm so hungry, she growled at him. I'm sorry, your mom was. Yeah, I know. My mom was needing you for the spell. She rolled her eyes. I bet you want her instead of me now. She pouted. She felt kind of jealous that every demoness wanted a piece of him now, and she was no longer alright with it. He wanted Naruto to herself. A small tear went down her cheek. She then turned to avoid staring at him, crossing her arms. Naruto shook his head. That's not true. He then walked towards her on the bed and began ing her cheek, causing her to blush. You're my number one, and nothing else will top that, he murmured quietly, his breath fanning against her neck, his warm hands slowly sliding up her waist till he reached her. Shamsiel ate happily and laid her head on his hands rubbing her gently. Let's go somewhere a little bit more happier, nay. Shamsiel all of a sudden snapped her, and they were teleported to a beach. There was a house nearby. A house that was filled with trees, bushes, and flowers. The GR was green and fresh, the sand was soft and smooth, there weren't any sandstorms around, only light breezes blowing past them. It was beautiful. Then Shamsiel snapped her again, and her blue lingerie high-knee outfits turned into a black bikini that hugged her body perfectly. While Naruto had orange shorts on suddenly, Naruto stared at it admiringly. Whoa! He exclaimed excitedly. Her bikini was tiny enough that she was spilling out from every angle. Her smooth skin was delicious and making Naruto's water. You like what you see? She stuck her out teasingly. Her tail was wiggling at his face, turning him on even more. Yes. He wanted to walk over to her, but all of a sudden, pink cuffs were placed on him. XXXX, Shamsiel, please, let me show you that I love you. He was chained on the bedpost at the beach house. Nope, this is to properly restrain you, pervert. She giggled. She was on a smaller bed opposite of him. She was ing her tail while swaying her seductively, driving Naruto insane, and the fact that he's remembering all the time Shamsiel and him had was just adding to his horniness. I bet you want to be me right now, or me. She then turned around and showed her jiggly butt towards him. Naruto gulped. His was growing larger by the minute. His pants felt like it were about to burst into flames. Please let me love you, make you happy. No, I don't trust you anymore, she replied, shrugging her shoulders. Naruto then whined annoyingly. Everyone wants to be with you, they can have your clones, but I need the real you. Her tail then slithered and tickled the head of his, causing him to. She sighed, blushed, ing her tail, while her eyes turned pink. He then had an idea. The rings. What if I make it up to you, my trunk pants? There's a gift for both of us. I hope you like it, Naruto pleaded. Shamsiel rolled her eyes and then looked at his trunk pants. She actually didn't touch it, just magically removed it from him. She then noticed a box object on the right side of his trunks. She brought out the box and opened it. Her face was in awe. Whoa! When did you buy this? Shamsiel exclaimed. The ring contained the pink and yellow colors that Mephisto knew that Shamsiel would love. In the human world, this is how we show forgiveness to mates, and also proposals to marriage, Naruto said softly. Shamsiel put the ring on and smiled happily. She then uncuffed his hands and floated him on the bed. Forgiven! She screamed fully. She then got on top of him and began to rub his crotch with her, then planting over 1,000 yes on his. Naruto smiled. Thanks. Naruto thought that since he proposed to her that they would need a wedding, but he decided to better integrate to their culture and not force what he already knows on them. Are you hungry, Shamsiel-chan? Naruto ed. Shamsiel then went down on him and pecked his almost 100 times. We're both going to be enduring heaven during this forgiveness session. Shamsiel ed. She then began to on his, and she ed the thoroughly while moving down on him and ing hard. Oh shit, your throat is the best. Naruto groaned, and he felt like he was gonna right there. Afterwards, she sat up on his lap and pulled down her swimsuit, revealing her perfect and plump. Shamsiel's turned red and her ears flamed red. Naruto grabbed his and pointed it up so she can sit on it. She nodded and went down all the way to the base. Shamsiel's eyes widened in surprise and shock. Naruto grinned. So I guess that means you forgive me now, right? He questioned. Yes, I do forgive you. She smiled. Naruto had a cheeky grin and wrapped his hand behind her head, wanting to her again. Both of them hungrily ing on each other's as Shamsiel had a whimper as she rolled her little bit, working his thick shaft with her cunt, slamming her down and taking all of his. Naruto, let's make a baby together. Knock me up, give me a baby. We're technically married, so why not? He smirked. He then positioned himself so he was at top. He then punched her cervix and hit her, making her eyes roll up. Naruto then ed her to quiet down her s. Her tail was wrapped around them, oiled and sweaty. His was punching and wiggling her. Naruto was ing her like this for 3 hours, never stopping, and just ing her and ing her during the process. Eventually semen just poured into her. Her eyes were turning blue in the process. Your semen is oozing in my... Shamsiel quietly said, we're going to be great parent. X. The afternoon sunset was unmatched. It was a very beautiful sight, especially seeing the sun slowly sinking below the horizon. Shamsiel blushed while holding her stomach, which was getting larger by the hour. Naruto hummed peacefully while laying down on her knees. We should most likely go to a tub in the next few hours. Succubus can give birth within a few hours. Why yeah, we should really do that. Naruto sighed peacefully. He was going to be a father, and he couldn't wait. Naruto moved towards Shamsiel's lower half and removed her bikini bottoms. They sat on a tub at the beach house. Night had occurred and the moon shined through the window of their room. It had been a few hours since Naruto impregnated her. She wanted him. Every last bit of hit. The greedy succubus princess wanted to lock him down with an offspring of their own. This was all her planning ever since seeing him in the forest. It would be really cute if they had a child that they could both love. It's remarkable to think on that day, Shamsiel wanted a meal, but now has her mate, for all time to come. Naruto decided this was for the best, and to make her happy, he loved her really bubbly personality, even though sometimes wanted to playfully bite him all over. But it was a turn on that a creature like her was in love with him. Everything was happening so fast. Shamsiel felt Naruto's touch, and she tensed up trying to move away from him. Shamsiel-chan, I love you, but you have to work with me here. You be baka. Shamsiel blushed while gritting her teeth. This is my first time giving birth to our human-demon hybrid. Mom said that first time a succubus gives birth it's extremely painful. Everything will be fine, sweetheart. Naruto grabbed her hand while he was behind her. Shamsiel's stomach was already enlarged even several hours after the insemination. Just push! Naruto yelled. Shamsiel tightened her grip on his hands as hard as I could. Her turned red as she let out a terrible scream in the process. I can't, Shamsiel cried. Naruto leaned down and ed her. Yes you can, you're doing a great job. Just grit your teeth and just push. I'm not making any progress. Naruto decided to let go of her hands and ed the back of her neck, as well as her horns with elicited S. You're doing a beautiful job. There's nothing beautiful about this, Shamsiel whimpered. Just think, you're almost done, and then we'll look at her / his beautiful face. He smirked, and moved her sweaty hair off her sweaty neck. I want our son or daughter to know you as the most amazing mother in the world. Naruto Shamsiel ed while he continued ing her neck. He really knows how to push her buttons. I don't know what to do. Talking about giving birth is a lot easier than doing it. You've been doing this for about a few minutes, the former shinobi turned ally to Sanctum said. Just give it a little of time. Suddenly, Shamsiel got to urge to push and shifted slightly uncomfortable. Okay, I really need to push, she said. Good thing the water was soothing her legs. Naruto nodded and held her hands again, and for a while that's how it went. The succubus princess would push and push and push, but nothing happened. She was dizzy and exhausted, but the baby wasn't coming out. I need to push again, Shamsiel panted. Okay, cutie, he said, rubbing her, causing her to blush in a minor fashion. Do it. Shamsiel retook his hands and push. You have to be, you're not getting anywhere. It hurts, Naruto. It just hurts, she said, sobbing a little bit. Her legs were getting numb, her were starting to prune. Try moving your legs a little wider, he suggested. She did exactly that. Better? She nodded slightly, still crying. She pushed for another 15 minutes, when all of a sudden, a blurt happened. Another contraction came, and Shamsiel just started pushing. Naruto then placed his blood hands on her knees, causing her to panic. Shamsiel, try not to push, he warned. I'm bleeding. Shamsiel screamed. I know it's alright, I heard that it's normal when this happens. Naruto also remembered that you needed to have some scissors for the cord. He rushed back into the house and found the conveniently placed item on the desk nearby the bed. When he arrived back, Shamsiel was screaming, trying to push the baby out with all her might. Naruto gasped and rushed to her side. Wait to leave me to deliver your baby. I'll cut you up with my fangs when I'm done with delivering. She hissed at him. Naruto smiled. You're so adorable when you talk like that. He giggled while poking her. You're doing great. Just one more push, I think. Squeezing his hands with all her might, she pushed until the veins were popping out of her forehead. Shamsiel, don't stop, please. He begged. It hurts so much. She was crying. You're almost done. Come on, my love. It hurts so much. Shamsiel, I promise. One more push. I know it hurts and I know you're tired. Just one more push. And no. She was shaking her head back and forth, sweat pouring down my face. Shamsiel, look at me. Either you push it out, or I'm going to pull the baby out. And I don't want to hurt you or the baby. Okay. I'll try my best. Shamsiel whined and nodded. Alright, come on, Shamsiel-chan. He instructed. She pushed again, but something was happening. The mark on her left cheek was glowing pink. She was screaming as the pool turned into a glow in the dark pink. Ow, 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 Kami! She screamed. Naruto, please. Oh wow. Naruto gasped, who was now in the water getting the baby quickly. You did it, Shamsiel. It's a girl. Naruto dry sobbed. Our little cutie. Naruto then used the pair of scissors to cut the umbilical cord. Her crying was the most beautiful sound they could have asked for right now. Let me see our baby, she smiled weakly. He gently nodded and placed her on the princess's arms. The newborn had light pink hair like Shamsiel's and had her cute demonic eyes, full of curiosity and wonder. She opened them softly for the first time. She looks exactly like you. Naruto breathed. Amber eyes and all. Shamsiel smiled and held her close to her. The baby closed her and began to look around the room, making no noise as she observed the fantasy world around her. When they landed back on Shamsiel's face, the baby began to let out some eager cries, bouncing up and down in Shamsiel's arms. Do you know who I am? She cooed playfully. The hybrid baby shrieked happily, causing Misty to laugh joyfully. That's right, I'm your mommy, and I'm so happy that we have you now. Cutie little baby demon. Shamsiel ed her on the forehead multiple times. What's name are we going to give her? Naruto asked. He wanted to give her the honor of naming her after all she's been through. How about, she pouted. Oh. Sujimai. Sugaim? Naruto wondered. Yeah, it has the letter S just like my name, and it also sounds similar to my name. Let's name her Sugaim. Okay, Sugaim it is then. We should probably go back to the main realm of Sanctum. I want to show everyone our baby now, especially Farika. She smirked with a victorious tone. She knew that she was going to explode with jealous rage now that she's truly tied to Naruto. He nodded his head. He was going to be a good father to Sugaim. There's going to be a lot of work that has to be accomplished. But since he was going to be like a new prince, a kind of Hokage in this realm, this all felt like a dream. Shamsiel and Naruto both stepped into the portal that she created to go into her room. Sugaim was tightly wrapped in a blanket. Shamsiel smiled and gingerly sat down on her bed, eyeing her happily. She also has your cute whiskers. Shamsiel giggled lightly, gently placing on her, causing Sugaim to blush a soft pink before looking away curiously. Oh. I'm so happy. I can't believe we're parents now. She squealed happily. Why yeah, me too, Naruto said shyly. He couldn't help but smile as he looked at his wife, who almost looked identical to Sugaim, but he was thinking about something. What is he going to do now? He was still a ninja, right? Besides having with Shamsiel, what was his purpose now? Having and dumping loads of semen in her to feed her energy and afterward having a child with Shamsiel was one thing, but he still needed an adventure. Since he's technically married to her, is he now a royal member of a Succubus clan? Naruto, are you okay? Shamsiel stated, looking worried at him. She pulled out her right and began to feed Succubus. Babies born to succubus mothers were known to have extreme appetites. Yeah, I'm fine. He smiled, trying to relax. Then go get my mom, she's probably in her office working or something. She needs to see our baby. She squealed. Naruto nodded and walked out of the room. Once he was out, he sighed. Why did this have to be so difficult? He knew where she was because Shamsiel already guided him to the mansion. He walked and took a look around. The mansion was littered with erotic pictures, such as a succubus enjoying semen after her prey was finished ejaculating in and on her face. He did admit that it did turn him on that he was in this position. He was still a virgin loser, and no girl would give him a chance. And besides, Shamsiel's bubbly personality and how he teased him. He smiled. Most men would die to be in his position. He knocked on the door of her huge office. Come in. Mephisto smiled delightedly. Naruto did as he was told. Oh, look who's arrived. The queen of the succubus smiled. Hey. Naruto blushed. Shamsiel G. gave birth to your child and you want me to see her? Yes, how did you know? I'm a supreme being, remember, she stated, if that wasn't the most obvious thing. Yeah, I forgot. He chuckled slightly. And she told you to bring me to her room to see your baby? She smiled. Yes. Naruto nodded, smiling himself. Mephisto then got up from her chair and stood in front of Naruto, wrapping her arms around him tightly. She eyed his cheek affectionately. Making his blush, she held onto his hand. I know how you're feeling. You have doubts about being in this realm. I promise we'll treat you like a king here. You have Shamsiel, me, and hundreds if not thousands of succubus wanting you. You're quite popular here. Shamsiel is quite lucky to have you survive all your UL encounters with her. She said, nibbing his ear, causing him to. And besides, do you want to go back to this? A magical mirror appeared on his right side. He glanced at it. The image showed him being a child and being thrown out of establishments due to the nine-tailed fox in him. Another image showed him being bullied by his peers, being called names, which caused him to cry. Naruto winced and looked away. He could hear his heart beating fast in his. The images were scary, but he knew deep down that she was right. It's okay. Don't think about those things anymore. Mephisto stroked the top of his head, making him relax and sigh in contentment. You know you want to be here. You can be our new warrior and protect Sanctum and help us grow. Shamsiel needs you especially. Look at all the times you've had with her. The mirrors showed Shamsiel. They were on top of the Hokage monument. Naruto kept caressing her, grabbing her tail, causing her to. Shamsiel then snapped her and they were in his apartment, on his bed. He smiled, and Shamsiel smiled evilly. I want you to make me cry out in. Your semen is what I crave. And maybe as a treat, I will give you a tit-tai fucking. She stuck her out while playing with her tail and Naruto giggled and grabbed her by her horns, ripping her one-piece suit and taking off his clothes. His was positioned in her entrance. Shamsiel wrapped her legs around him, causing them to come closer to each other. They both locked. Naruto caressed her in face, causing her to. There was another flashback where Shamsiel was ing him off relentlessly. Naruto grabbed her horns and pushed her down on his, and his body tensed up. Ah! Naruto ate softly. He then erupted his cream in her. Shamsiel ate every drop and didn't waste anything. For she stopped ing and finished ing his load. Thanks for the meal. You sure know how to feed me. She smiled happily, ing her. Oh, look at how you're both enjoying yourselves. She probably couldn't walk after you were finished with her. She blushed while looking at Naruto, who had a look of embarrassment on his face. Such a cute couple, see? You have Shamsiel, I have you. What more could anyone ask for? Mephisto cooed lovingly, rubbing his face. You get to be the protector of our realm. You're still technically a ninja. You can help us build our empire. Mephisto grabbed his hands. You've been through a lot, but don't let it ruin you. You can be strong, Naruto. I know it. You can have anything you want here. Anything. She then stepped closer to him and ed him pianely. They ed for a while and then Mephisto pulled out of his embrace. Now let me go see your new baby. She smiled. Hi, Naruto said. His heart hitched a little. She was right. He had everything in Sanctum. He felt like a king here. Something that wasn't going to happen in his old life. XXXXX. Mephisto entered the door and saw Shamsiel and the little baby. Hey mom. She smiled. Wow, it's finally happened. You gave birth, nay? She floated towards her daughter and wrapped her arms around her. Ow, I'm still sensitive, you know. Shamsiel winced. I'm sorry, but I'm just so proud of you. What's the cutie's name? Mephisto asked. Succubus, Naruto responded, walking towards them. Wonderful, you guys are doing a great job increasing our population. Mephisto grinned widely. I've always wondered, Will Sugaim have human genes or demonic genes? Naruto asked, sitting alongside the bed with Shamsiel. Both actually, but more demonic since our DNA outpowers your DNA. So she'll be an elite hybrid, she's the first of her kind. Shamsiel smiled. Oh. I see. Naruto said. This calls for a celebration. Mephisto declared. She then snapped her and a large bottle of sake was in her hands. In the meantime, she snapped her again and a portal revealed a large house on the outskirts of Sanctum. It was a large building with many rooms, 2 floors, all decorated elegantly furnished. There are 3 upstairs, and a large basement for you guys to enjoy. There's also a huge playroom for Sugaim. Consider it my gift. Wow, really? Shamsiel was shocked. Don't be so surprised, I'm just glad you're here, you guys deserve everything. I just want my new son-in-law to be happy, and he deserves that, doesn't he? Mephisto at his neck, sending shivers down her spine. But causing Shamsiel to growl lowly, causing Mephisto to laugh. I better go now. I have tons of work to do, thank you? Naruto nodded, she nodded back, and then left the room. Shamsiel rolled her eyes, she definitely wants to bed you again. Why yeah? He smiled. XXXXXX. After they settled into their new home, Shamsiel was busy feeding Sugaim, softly whispering loving words to the baby girl who listened to her attentively. Sugaim was a quiet baby, she didn't cry a lot, was always looking at the world around her, but she did cry a lot. In fact, when they got to their new house she was crying almost constantly, and had to be changed. That job had to go to Naruto, to his dismay. After a few hours Sugaim started to tire. Oh, she's about to sleep. She whispered gleefully. She then handed her to Naruto, who looked at her adorable pink hair that was growing, and her eyes fluttering lightly. He was truly happy, a little girl, he knew that he was blessed. It was a miracle that he had all of this, it was a miracle that he had her, both of them. He then started to cry a little bit. After being ostracized and abused by the villagers, he now for the first time was feeling happiness. Shamsiel saw this and happily gleaned at her husband. A little emotional, are you? She chuckled, but it felt like she was about to cry too. Naruto nodded, and they both walked into her room filled with toys that had a pink and orange theme to it. Naruto slowly laid Sugaim down on her crib, caressing her, and looked lovingly at her, then leaned forward and then at her forehead gently. Good night, Sugaim, Mommy and Daddy love you. He then smiled. He led both of them out of the room now, leaving the room door open in case she started crying again, which was highly likely. I'm thankful that she's sleeping, Shamsiel sighed in relief. Now what do you want to do? Shamsiel screamed in surprise as Naruto wrapped his arms around her, her neck. He then scooped her up bridal style and ran towards the bedroom, laying her gently on the bed. A rosy blush worked her way onto her. Thank you, Shamsiel, for everything. Naruto ate her piantly on the neck, causing her to scream uncontrollably with laughter and hisses. Don't mention it, carrying Sugaim for a few hours does hurt, even for a succubus, you know. Naruto nodded in agreement. They both stared at each other for a few seconds. Shamsiel smiled. I'm hungry, you know. Her tail then slithered up to his pants. Her voice tugged at his heartstrings. I love you, Shamsiel. I want this life to last forever. He then removed all his clothes and tore Shamsiel's blouse and skirt that she was wearing, their stark bodies, keeping each other warm, all while they were entwined with each other. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the MisoSparkz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.